Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the City of Palm Coast City Council Budget Workshop. Today is Tuesday, July 28, 2026. It's 9 a.m. We're in John Netz Community Wing of City Hall. I'm calling this meeting to order. If you could, please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance and a short moment of silence. Please keep the families of Miss Alice Baker, former mayor of Flagler Beach, who just passed away, and also Mr. Bob Cuff, who was a member of this city council, who just passed away. Please keep them and their families in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If you have any devices, please silence them at this time. Ms. Allison, if you could call the roll, please.
Mayor Norris,
Here?
Vice Mayor Pontieri,
Present.
Councilmember Gambaro,
Here.
Councilmember Miller,
Here.
and Councilmember Sullivan.
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you, ma'am. We're going to begin today's workshop with public participation. We'll allot 30 minutes. Please, items that are not on this agenda, so the budget packet, if you have any comments, please come forward.
Cameron Orr, Palm Coast. Next week, it'll be 1 year since the county and the city formed a task force on the potential for a second animal shelter in the county. During last fall and leading up to our last get-together in a joint workshop on the 29th of January, I felt we made steady progress in answering the questions at the different boards and again, kind of steady progress on our work. I'm here today without the concurrence of my fellow members of the task force. But it's my opinion that task force has really kind of languished since that last joint meeting on the 29th of January. We concentrated on working on a facility at the public works site, and that kind of became undoable because of the timeline for the existing operations to vacate that site so that we could actually build there. And so we kind of languished with different options on that. What frustrates me now is on the 16th of June, we had a very generous offer from a donor who wishes to remain anonymous, a major offer that would allow for 10 acres on a major thoroughfare to be given for this site. That offer was made known to our task force on the 16th of June. It took us 3 weeks to even meet with this person. We had an initial meeting. We got started and we had a meeting again a week later on June 16th with the donor, with staff, and the task force. We had also had a very prominent local veterinarian attend that meeting, and wishes of the donor were made known, one of which included meeting with the joint meetings again to understand for sure the commitments of the city and the county if he goes forward with this donation. That request initially was made orally on the 16th. On the 21st, he wrote and asked again in writing for a joint meeting. And here we sit on the 28th, and to the best of my knowledge, we're not doing anything about even having a joint meeting with this donor. It's frustrating to me. This is a major, major offer in the millions of dollars, and we can't seem to answer the question about having a joint meeting. I know there's still going to be unanswered questions, but I think we got time to answer that. If we establish a joint meeting, we'll get those answers. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And I have some follow-up on that one when you're ready, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Pat Stasio, Palm Coast. I'm here regarding the shifting code to complaint-based only, that's crazy. Because Palm Coast, I don't know who recommended it, has ever driven through every section of Palm Coast. I wrote article, I just happened to find it yesterday, in 2015, because I've been on this for over 20 years. It's worse now because of all the homes. But it can't just be shifted to complaint-based. The enforcers, the inspectors have to drive around. And they're supposed to, when they get a complaint on one house, they're supposed to do the whole street. That needs to be enforced. Barbara Grossman is great. You know, she's helped me a lot in 20 years. And we all know duplexes are the downfall of Palm Coast because they love lining the garbage pails outside the houses. The 2 stories, for some reason, always look really bad. And I know people, I know the city gets complaints. It's hard to believe they get that many because people won't give their names. I had a person on my friend's block, beautiful house. He said to me, "Is that allowed next door? All the pails, the recycling bins, and garbage." I said, "No, so just put in a complaint." He wouldn't do it, so I did it. That's why I'm saying a lot of people won't do it because of their names. So I really don't think we should shift code only to complaint-based. And like I said, and it also needs to be enforced when the inspector goes for one house, he needs to do the whole street. That will clean up Palm Coast a lot. I'm in every section, and it's really sad what I see. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else for public? Yes, Mr. First Sergeant Webb.
How's everyone doing? Anybody need a helping hand figuring out our budget? I'm the man with the plan.
State your,
Yeah, I
na-
can start right here.
state your name first, Sergeant.
Terry Webb.
Thank you, sir.
I live here in Palm Coast. The thing I'd like to bring up is these CDDs. When's the last time someone took and looked to see how much money is still owed us from these CDDs? I would guess no one's done it. I know that to get paid, they have to sell a house in order for us to collect some of that money back. But right now, there's so many homes out there now that have not been sold, lots that have not been sold. However, we keep dishing out money for these guys to build new roads, infrastructure, and everything like that, and then start building their homes. Meanwhile, we're not getting any of that money back. It's not coming back like we thought it would when we started doing this. Personally, I think if they want to build, reach in your pocket and pull out your money and pay for it. Don't ask us for tax dollars. If you want to go west of Route 1 and build out there and put a sports arena out there, come up with the money out of your pocket and pay for it, okay? Don't ask us to do it unless you've got concrete proof, dollar amounts that we're going to get money back from this, not over 30 years or 40 years, starting on day one. It's all about the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, sir.
Good morning. I'm John Caveteris. I live over in the R section. Over the past few months, residents in District 4 have seen the opening of Fire Station 26 and the completion of the traffic safety improvements in Town Center. Those are visible examples of city government delivering something residents can actually use. I know the city already provides considerable information through the Capital Improvement Project dashboard and the Palm Coast Progress. Those are valuable resources, but it should not be difficult for residents to find out what other projects are underway in their district, what those projects cost, whether they are on schedule, and what improvements are planned next. I would encourage the city to consider publishing a simple quarterly report organized by council district. It would list completed projects, active projects, estimated costs, funding sources, and expected completion dates. Residents are being asked to support a growing city and a substantial city budget. In return, they should be able to clearly see where that money is going and what results it is producing in their own neighborhoods. Just an idea. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comment? Pretty simple. We'll bring it back to the dais. Any follow-up, city manager?
Yes, sir. For Mr. Orr's comments to the council. So when we had our one-on-one meeting with the anonymous donor, we were asked, of course, to keep that anonymous, in which we honored. From the email on the 21st from the donor, city staff has reached out and to the donor. We've already scheduling meetings for further coordination, and as well, I have a 3:30 meeting today on my calendar with the interim county administrator for agenda and these topic discussion.
Thank you, sir. Anything else? Anything else from the council? Councilman Miller?
No, Mr. Mayor, thanks.
Vice Mayor?
Really quickly on the same issue, for the animal shelter, I think we need to get consensus to figure out what we're going to be putting towards the animal shelter. We got the appropriations from the state. The county wants to also put money towards the animal shelter, but at some point we need to decide as a council what monies, if any, from presumably fund balance will be dedicating towards the animal shelter, because the donor wants to get this done as quickly as possible. So I'm glad to hear there's a meeting, city manager, between you and the county administrator. I guess at this point, if I could get consensus from council to allow our staff to talk about what monies the county is willing to put towards this, because it's my understanding that everybody kind of wants to match each other. So I'm not asking for a dollar figure right now, but at least an understanding that monies will have to be put in from us per the donor's request, which I understand, in order to capitalize on the appropriations that we got and also capitalize on the land that's being donated.
So for my part, I agree. Whatever conversation needs to happen so that we can make that decision. I know we have, I believe it's the 11th is when that capital projects agenda item was scheduled to talk about the fund balance. So I was kind of waiting until then to talk about what we were going to do with that. But in terms of the conversation, yes, because we need to make a decision and then start moving forward, whether it's an amount of money that it doesn't fund the whole thing, but it gets it started, right? So that we can figure out the rest as we go, because we have, varying needs right now. But I fully support that, and trying to find some of the funds from that fund balance to move this project forward.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Sullivan? Hit your mic.
Okay, just one point to follow up on that. Obviously, we want to solve our problem with the Humane Society and make sure we have proper facilities for the animals that need that help. I just point out every time that somebody says, well, the county is going to contribute this much and the city is going to contribute this much. Remember, 80% of the ad valorem taxes that are paid to the county come from Palm Coast. So when you say that the county is going to, duplicate what we duplicate, that just means that they're taking 80% of the money that they get from the city and putting it to the program. So I think every time we hear comments like that, remember that the city of Palm Coast is roughly, you can go into detail, 80% of the ad valorem taxes that go to the county. So when the county spends money, 80% of that money comes from the city.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Gambaro?
Yeah, no issues with taking a look at the information, having the necessary conversations, and then seeing where it lands. When it comes to fund balance, I'm laser focused on our roads, right? And so let's see where. But I mean, it doesn't hurt to have conversations and get us to a right place to where we can make a decision on it. So yeah, I support it.
Yep. Thank you, City Manager. I have no problem with that. Seeing what we can do. My biggest issue is I don't even know where the property's at. I heard about a contribution, Mr. Orr, but I don't know where the property's at or anything like that. So if we could, I'd like to have a course of action. When you meet with them, what's our course of action? Because I don't think we can make any decisions without having something. We have to have a blueprint of how we're going to do it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So is that good? Consensus on monies, I'm a little bit more focused on roads too, Councilman.
Yes, no, I agree though, Mr. Mayor. Another point to add though, for this is that when we're looking at kind of recurring costs and we're talking about the Humane Society asking for much more in terms of their contract this year, this investment will eventually pay us back dividends in terms of that cost, right? Because then we have an alternative option to work with. So just want to point that out, that there is a fiscal side of this that makes it better in the long term to have more options.
Thank you. And the follow-up on the code enforcement, we'll be discussing that in this budget presentation. I just didn't want to cut you off, but it is part of the budget presentation. With that being said, anything else from the council? Legal? Nothing? All right, we're moving on to item E, presentations. We have one presentation. This the whole reason for this meeting. Proprietary fund budget. Ms. Ragsdale and Ms. Helena.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council. Gwen Ragsdale and Helena Alves, your finance team. Staff is here today to present to you the proprietary fund budgets and review general fund options. So the presentation overview for today, we will go over operating budgets for stormwater, water and wastewater, building, collection and sanitation, and information technology enterprise fund, as well as some general fund options. The capital budgets for stormwater and wastewater will be presented in August with the 5-year CIP. Council received the detailed worksheet in the agenda packet last week for the budgets that will be presented today. I will now turn it over to Director Carl Cody, who will present the Stormwater Management Fund budget.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, Carl.
Yes, good morning. Carl Cody, Director of Stormwater Engineering. So just wanted to make some highlights before we get into the budget portion. As you know, back in, I believe it was May, we made a presentation on our annual update on the stormwater program. So we touched a lot upon what we're doing, the improvements we made, the staff we added, the level of service changes, and those sorts of things, as well as capital projects, what was ongoing and what was upcoming. But I just wanted to highlight some of those things on these slides. You know, we did add this fiscal year a second swale trenching crew. We reduced our open swale work orders from 654 at the beginning of the fiscal year to 225 at the beginning of July. We added the in-house concrete asphalt crew this year. We completed the K-section capital drainage improvement project, the Belterre major pipelining project, and we began construction on Colbert drainage improvements. So just some of those major highlights I just wanted to touch upon. And then on the next slide, we touch upon what we have next year. So we ordered the pontoon this year per council approval in May, and we expect delivery in January. In next year's budget, we do have one crew truck for that pontoon operator, as well as that position for the equipment operator to run the pontoon. Both those items were in the 2023 rate study. We do have a skid steer piece of equipment in the budget. We currently rent one at about $30,000 a year. A new one's about $100,000, so it lasts about 10 years, so it's definitely a cost savings item to purchase it rather than continue to rent one for that crew. And then one of the major highlights is to complete the Colbert drainage project. And on the October 11th, we'll go into more detail on some of the ongoing capital projects that we have. So in terms of personnel changes, you can see we have 77 staff in current year budget. We have the one new position for next year to run the new pontoon excavator. So I'll bring us up to 78.
I have a question, Carl, on that really
Yes,
quickly.
go ahead.
Is the pontoon operation, so that equipment operator for the pontoon operation, is that an everyday operation?
That's the intent, yes.
Okay, so, I mean, sorry, I'm not in stormwater. What exactly will they be doing?
So we have a smaller one. This is the larger one. So the smaller one we use in combination with our Menzie that goes into the ditches and cleans the ditches out. This larger one is going to work more focused on our canals and the deeper water, where they'll do the areas where the ditches connect to the canal. That's usually where you have some sediment buildup, or that when pipes cross the roads, the sediment buildup. So they'll be working at those locations.
Okay, thank you.
And then potentially even doing larger projects where we may dredge a section of the canal, potentially even.
I have just another question. In terms of, we've specifically mentioned the freshwater canals. Are these capable of operating in the saltwater canals as well?
They are, but it's when you definitely
Life expectancy is
Yeah,
shortened.
yes.
exactly. That's the
anything
best way
around-
to put it. When we did work in the saltwater canals where we had the Palm Harbor failure with the pipe and the drainage issues there, we rented one. One, because we needed a bigger one, and two, we didn't want our equipment in the saltwater.
Right, yeah, anything when you're around salt, it's gonna degrade fast. Okay, thank you.
So this here covers the revenue. You can see in next year's proposed budget, we are not having any ad valorem taxes put into this fund. So it'll be solely charges for services. We have no loan proceeds next year. The other revenue line item, those are fees we collect with permits. So that covers staff's time to review items, permits, plans, also to do some survey work and check in the field regarding some permits. So those are an offset cost. It's to cover our time. Those charges continue to be evaluated to make sure we're covering our cost. We do have a grant next year. We did receive an appropriation for the Burroughs Drive Stormwater Park. So that's $150,000 in next year's budget. And then the fund balance appropriation, that's just we'll get more into detail on that later. You can see there's an asterisk there. That's really tied to our capital projects. We have some loan proceeds. We have some stormwater rates for some ongoing projects that we'll go into detail on the 11th.
Carl, for the grant for Burroughs, that's for design work, is that correct?
Yes, design and permitting, correct.
In terms of that, I know in Matanzas Woods, there was some outreach to the local residents near there. And it made a lot of sense because it was behind a lot of houses, right? So you wanted to get everybody's buy-in in terms of the design and the structure. I know at one point there was a talk of like a bicycle path to make it more of a static park, right? That people could still enjoy, but wouldn't have any equipment and things like that. Do we have plans for outreach in that neighborhood to try to work with some of the residents? I know there's one road that basically has backyards to it. The other side is connected, has a canal in between and some sightline standoff. So potentially those aren't necessarily as important to talk to those residents, but the ones directly abutting this property, I think it's appropriate to make sure that we have a conversation with them and talk to them about what potentially can be there, to make sure that everybody's on board with this.
Yeah, absolutely, because the intent is it's a stormwater park, because this was always identified as a potential neighborhood park site. We heard from council that this could be a potential skate park site. So we would definitely want community input as to what could go here. Obviously, the more you develop, the less you have for stormwater park, pond capacity. So it'll be a trade-off that will come back to council with options and what we hear from the citizens. So yes.
And I'd like to be involved with that if I can in terms of that, because that's my neighborhood.
Right, we'll try and hold that at the school, work with the schools so we can hold it locally and whatnot.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
What was that you just said about skate park?
I think from council Belterre Park came up. I think Ty, you might have mentioned 23.
Yeah, I sent an email that said, hey, they had mentioned, behind, Frida Zamba area, right? But also there's parkland up on the north side as well. So I just said, throw that in the presentation as a potential option, not.
We just identified as one of the many potential sites.
Right.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that before.
Yeah, there's that whole thing was set aside as parkland, but, obviously we feel like the stormwater aspect of this is going to be more beneficial. But there's still opportunity. There's like a little cutout right next to the fire station that could potentially be a neighborhood park or something as well.
Yeah, just to some history, the church that's on the corner of Burroughs and Belterre, the city has a cross-access parking agreement with the church, so they can construct a parking lot on the city land, just like we did with Parkview at Indian Trails, that we would serve both the church and the park site, so that the parking would be on Burroughs. So I'm not sure where we would develop the site, so that'll be taken into account.
Thank you, sir.
So this is a summary of the expenses. Obviously, the capital projects funds are not in here. You can see the fleet request in here. So we have a replacement of white fleet, $102,000 in equipment at $102,000 as well. So our stormwater maintenance operations, we'll go into detail on most of these, but you can see our operations division, we disbanded, I guess you could say. We shifted some staff. The ones that were doing non-stormwater functions of the stormwater system, went to building department where they do the lot grading and those sorts of things. Some of the staff, we got to put more boots on the ground. Some went to maintenance, some went to engineering. So you can see after 25, that division went to zero. And then some of the other divisions went up. So when you're comparing the 25 to 26, you'll see some spikes, but that's because of the shifting of the staff for partial year in 25. So on the next slide, we're going to maintenance. So you can see maintenance is relatively flat overall, but we had 1.2 million for contracted services where we were going to have a contract to help us with the work order backlog. We did hire someone, they walked off the job, and we improved our trench program, added a second trench crew, and we did it in-house instead. What we did is we used those funds to shift down to the interfund transfers, 900,000, and that's for the pontoon excavator primarily. So that 1.2, 900, that went down. We did do some contract work with some pipe work, but overall, the other changes, interfund transfers, we did add equipment with those new crews, so our fleet allocation went up. We added some of that staffing, so some of those other internal allocations went up as well. So that was a big jump there, reasoning for that. Any questions on maintenance? Okay, next slide. So now we go into engineering. You can see we went up 13%, and that's primarily in operating expenses. That's in our professional services. We have some funds in there for, MS4 permit responsibilities. We have to do some public outreach, some publications, but the big dollar in there is for updating our LiDAR. So it's with all the development that's happened over the last 10 years, updating the LiDAR would help our stormwater model be more accurate. So when we have that citywide stormwater model updates, we'll have better information. So we're looking at potentially, we have some dollars in there to potentially look into doing it. Last time we did it with the Water Management District, and it was kind of a joint effort. I think the county may even have done some as well. So we're going to pursue that next year and see where that goes and look at some timelines. So right now we have some dollars in there to potentially move forward with that.
Carl, I have a question in terms of the LiDAR and why it's so important. So obviously we have an overlay of our stormwater system, right, between the swales, the ditches, all the way out to the canals. I know that with the last time we did LiDAR, we were able to identify new ditches that we were not aware of based on the transition from ITT to the city of Palm Coast and all that, right? So it's not like they handed over a map and said, here's all the ditches that exist in Palm Coast, right? And so potentially with this new LiDAR mapping that we do, because I know that we still are finding some random stormwater, system ditches.
Things weren't constructed per as-bills, and there are changes.
Right. So this would we be able to identify any more of these, do you think?
It's always possible. I mean, the technology changes so much. So the last time the LiDAR was done, the technology drastically changed. I mean, we could pick up the 4-inch curbs in parking lots. You could do cuts through the canals. It showed drainage flows. So it was a huge increase, just like scanning our roads. Every time we scan the roads, it's new technology, better equipment, you get better data.
So, and just for like public knowledge, so this will scan basically the topography to a very fine detail, and then it cuts through like vegetation and things like that. So that doesn't come up, so you can actually see the ground level of everything. So it allows you to kind of see these, a groove through the woods that was a stormwater ditch that maybe is overgrown now. And so that's the hope, at least from my part, is that we can identify, because I know there's a couple in the W section that in the last year and a half we found one that needed to be added essentially to the maintenance schedule, because once it overgrows, then it doesn't do the job that it was doing 15 years ago, unbeknownst to us, because it wasn't passed off. So Thanks for that.
And then the next slide is the non-departmental. So you can see some changes in here. We did have our debt service. We had a loan paid off, so you see debt service drop slightly. Interfund service allocation. I don't recall specifically the drop for. I don't know if it was for new purchase of fleet.
So that is related to the general fund administration allocation. It is a product of the budget as a whole, so you'll see if there's additional expenditures in the other proprietary funds, it'll automatically decrease the others.
And then you can see we have the capital projects for the MOC. We have 2.5 million this year and 2.5 million next year to continue the fleet facility phase 1 of the project.
So Helena, what you're saying is that the proportional share of those services went down for this fund because of increases in another fund?
That is correct, mainly related to utility capital projects increase.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that pretty much ends the stormwater budget. So any follow-up questions?
Any follow-ups from the council?
I don't have any questions. I just, again, want to commend Stormwater for all the work that you guys have done, particularly with the funds that were allocated. It was a good usage of the monies. The extra crews have clearly done a good job. I've seen an exponential improvement, so I just want to thank the crews and your team, Lynn, your team, for all the work that you guys have done.
Thank you.
I had one.
Yes, sir.
And same thing. I think the stormwater has really improved and efficiently using their funding. And I pass over that Colbert Lane project every day, and I'm pretty impressed with the alternate road they had to put in order to put the new culverts under Colbert. It's anybody who hasn't seen that on Colbert Lane. It is a major project, and it seems to be progressing very well.
Yeah, it is going very well.
Thank you, sir. Anything else from the council? Thank you, Carl.
Thank you, Carl. Director Brian Roche will now present the water and wastewater budgets.
My brother would like that Roche. He puts an asterisk on the last of our name for his labels. But good morning, folks. Thanks for having us today. We got about 8 slides, and then 4 or 5 of them are tables of numbers, and there's 3 or 4 slides on the people and transfers. When I do the people one, I'm gonna ask to kind of consolidate that because a lot of those are moving from one department to the other. I think it'll be simpler for us. So the first slide we have here is our utilities and $92 million of revenue. So in a sense, this is a source of funds where the money comes from. So that's about 8% higher than last year. Actually, it's a little bit more than 8 or 9% higher because we had the rate adjustment, plus we also had growth in revenues. So that's where the $92 million are. While we're really focused on 27, 26 had that fund balance appropriation. That was money from prior years to carry us over the current year. And the utility, whatever doesn't get spent, stays in either A, the checking account for operating, or B, it's going to move over to the capital funds. And, really, it's a multi-year budget financial plan that we brought to, with the financial forecast several months ago. So some of the timing of the expenditures, if it doesn't get spent, is going to be needed in the future years to be able to help fund the capital program of $590 million.
I have a question on that. So when you say it gets moved over to operational, is that the same thing as R&R?
No, I think I'll take the liberty on this one. We start off at $92 million revenue. So, and we've had some slides in the past, and I think going forward, try to put that real succinct. So 44.319 million is our O&M expense. The net of that is 48 million. That's our net revenues. So the O&M expense, if we don't spend 44.319, and maybe it is actually, the answer might be yes, but 2 parts to that. So that 48 million is available for other purposes. And if we say we only spend $43 million, that is available for capital. And the R&R is a specific definition, 5% of revenues required under bond conditions, but the council added that extra amount of money to 12.5% from capital outlay, we're calling it, to go with the R&R fund
Right.
to pay for renewal and displacements. Not the technical word R&R that the bond council uses, but it's used the same way.
Okay, so in a roundabout way,
Yes.
okay. I only point that out because I know when we were looking at the bond amounts and thinking about taking out that second bond, which we decided not to do at this time, one of the issues that was brought to us by staff was, well, what you all are doing currently is not funding R&R. So essentially, we were only funding capital projects, but we were not funding R&R. At one point, that's what was relayed to us.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure, because I won't be on this council moving forward, but as we move forward, looking at trends, because I guess I don't want, I think when we do estimates, oftentimes we're conservative, right? So we may overestimate just a little bit to make sure that we've got sufficient fundings. But even in 2026, we've got the adopted assumption of 83 million, but we're estimating to bring in 86 million. So I guess I just want to make sure that as we move forward, if further bonds are going to have to be taken out for capital, that historically the amount of money that we're bringing in versus estimating is as close as possible. Because again, before we were told at one point, well, what you guys are doing is not going to fund R&R. But if we do have some monies that are going to operations and R&R that are kind of that were from an underestimation, then I think that needs to be pointed out so that council has all the information going forward when they're looking at future bonds.
Yeah, I'll try to make this succinct. So if we underspend O&M, million and a half numbers, in the utility, I believe I would go to repair and replacement of existing assets, which is a combination of the 5% revenues R&R bond requires and the 12.5% the council moved a year and a half ago. That's about a 17.5%. I think long-term that number needs to be closer to 25 to 30, but we have adequate funds the next several years. The council did a year and a half ago. Our job now is get project delivery processes working, both from our outside consultants, outside contractors, our procurement, ourselves. So we're funded fine for now. As we move forward, I believe that, and then up here it shows $19 million. The interfund transfer is generically R&R, the combination of the 5% and the 12.5. And over time, I think that number is going to be closer to $25 or $30 million needs. The future rate adjustments account for some of that moving up, but we're going to need more as we go for kind of matching depreciation. So it's going to have to go up over time, but that's not an immediate issue. Right now, the immediate issue is get the engineering firms, the contractors, the service providers, ourselves in utilities, the procurement, getting that machine running efficiently. So that's the goal right now.
Okay, yeah, and thank you for that. And, you know, I only point that out because there's people who are still saying we took out $600 million in bonds, which we did not do.
$283 million. Other
you.
money that gets to $330 was refinancing, saving money like you refinance.
Yeah, and it's still a lot of money. I'm not trying to be dismissive, but it's certainly not 600 million. And so I think I point that out to say that things can change along the way, just because at one point we were told this is what we need in order to do what we need to do with the water and the utilities does not automatically mean that's what we will be doing. So that's my point in kind of bringing that up. Things change, obviously. And I appreciate your work because I know you've been working really hard on all of this, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll go back. So now we'll go through 3 expense slides. It's broken up, well, actually, this is the total one. So the wastewater operations, the proposed third column to the right, $17 million, water $20 million, administrative services $6, and the non-departmental is the $24 million debt service, the $1.5 million pilot transfer to the general fund in lieu of taxes, and the other about $23 million goes to capital projects, mostly R&R type stuff, and also help to fund the MOC. So when you look at that, go back for a second. Really, we are at the utility are managing this at a macro level, in a sense, not really split between water and wastewater administrations. We're at 44,319. We may have some time where we need money to move across water and wastewater, and we will do that during the year as we need it. So some people's jobs, like myself and many others, are crossing over both water and wastewater. This is the way we're reporting. And long-term for cost of service, it's good to have it, but I think from a budget perspective, we're really daily managing it together. on the sheet there, so we're gonna have 3 sheets here showing, like, this is the administrative position, 8 new positions. Well, some of this is moving from the water or the wastewater. What we have, and usually I print 11 by 17 portrait view, but this is our list of our new allocations, a couple in recruitment as we speak. And to break it out, these slides, we have 14 slots, FTEs in this budget between 3 slides here. And 9 of those are technical or business. 3 are engineering and construction related. 2 are procurement and billing related to help to make sure the contracts are appropriate, get some work done before we give it to Mr. Duffy, make sure the billing's going out and reported correctly. We have 3 in the meter area. 1 is specifically related to AMI with the technology of automatic metering, and then we have 1 in customer service. So we have 9 of the 14 positions in technical, business type, customer, because meter and billing touches customers every single month. And we have 5 in operations. This is in line in the sense of the quantity and the numbers of what was done in the gap study a year and a half ago. It had about 3 years added in it. When you look at operations, we have 1 new position. I think it's okay just to leave. We're doing 1 in operation where the wastewater treatment plant. We're going to get some operators going to the new wastewater treatment plant. So therefore, when it's up and running in several years, you have that. We have 1 in collection, and we have 2 in pump stations. We have 186 pump stations today. I'm pretty sure we'll have 200, before we know it. And pump stations are more complicated. We're using pump stations for various different things on our SCADA and measuring the system, both on the wastewater and the water. And then we have 1 in kind of a water quality type area. So 5 in operations, 9 in business and technical engineering. And then next year, the gap analysis had more positions. Will we hire all those? Nah. We're not going to get them all hired this year. It's the recruit, the technical ones are very difficult. Operations, not only while we have these slots here, we have some efficiency opportunities we know. We have too many times more than 1 person's touching a meter install, more than 1 person's touching a customer inquiry. We got to do one-stop resolution. So we know we have a couple efficiencies, and we will hire these over the year, and what money doesn't get spent, again, will stay in the balances, and we need every penny from those balances. We have adequate liquidity and days cash. They will help fund the maintenance of the system, so in the sense of the R&R.
Why do we need a person just for procurement for utility?
Because I'm getting tired of doing it, and Marcus is, it's very complex. The engineering construction role, $590 million of construction, and there's terminologies, an engineering role called CCNA that really wasn't used commonly in lingo even, a year ago. You have certain requirements, and you go out for bid. Well, let's be direct. We have a item come to the next item to replace some membranes in our wastewater plant. And those membranes are sitting in our water plant as we speak, right in front of our membrane. We have space, but soon we need that area because we're going to change our membranes to water. Well, part of that, we did a continuous service agreement for construction. Well, you have to advertise for 30 days, not 22 days, so you go back out. The engineering firms, I'll be direct, while we need them in the world, we need them in the country, we need them here, they're not operating as efficiently as they used to, viewing, and we're trying to get them, because we are a big program, view us holistically. So we got to make sure we have every duck in a row, and we actually got to be ahead of them. Even though there are service providers, we got to be ahead of them to get the documents in, the agenda items, their scopes to be coordinated amongst themselves, same companies, amongst other companies. So when you got a massive capital delivery program like this, we definitely need that. A couple places around the country, I think it's Hampton Roads is where I first met it 10 years ago, they had procurement in the engineering department. So sometimes when you do engineering, procurement, construction, you'll have it in the engineering part. We don't need that. It's fine to report up through Helena's department, but we really need to focus on this.
And
save us money too.
These positions have already been budgeted for, you said, in the prior rate analysis.
Yes, everything operates off this financial forecast, which matched in the gap analysis a year and a half ago. I wasn't here. 44,319. I'm missing the thousand numbers. That's $44,319,000 O&M expense. We kept that steady here. And then that's the projection going, the budget has that number. I got it, I pulled my HP 41 CV calculator at 10 o'clock last night and make sure it matched. So that's where we're operating, it matches.
Okay, thank you.
So then we go to wastewater. This is the wastewater slide. The big changes, I think we focus on the second column to the right. Oh, this is administration, sorry. The 1.256, that is 4 new people now, but some that's a reclass from other people. So it's not just 4 people. We also have increase in benefits, and we have really, there's people that move, like my position, and people in engineering now, they were other departments we borrowed last year, reclass. My first month here, we're doing reclass letters. I never have done one. They helped me through it. So we borrowed a customer service slot, and then we reclassed it over. So some of this is moving between departments when it gets down to it. The operating expenditure 292, that changed. We have several supporting consultant agreements that we want to put out there. We have a rate benchmark, kind of getting us set up for understanding and make sure capacity fees. Right now, a new new gallon of water we're charging $44, $46, but wastewater is costing us closer to $50 to $60 a gallon. So we got to get that framework built in the financial model and understand, so in several years when it's time to make the move, we have all that data available. We want to benchmark against our peers on that. We'll get some help on that. We have some odor control standards that we're building, that's O&M. Some people might say, is that capital? No, so we're going to put our standards, O&M. We're reaching out, we're trying to develop a framework to reach out with our stakeholders in the community. Those are the engineering firms, the contractors, the developers, to say, here's our construction standards. While we may have 100 different construction standards for new development, there's probably 20 that people use 80% of the time. Let's go get best in class. I have 60 hours in the last 6 weeks. That's about a quarter of my time dealing with manholes and 2-inch lines that we have construction standards on. We got a team doing that. So we'll make sure that we have our standards button up to the T that's crystal clear, is efficient for our stakeholders, which are contractors, current customers, electricians, engineering firms, plumbing companies, and we need to do that. So we're going to do a little bit more on our benchmark standards. They haven't been updated holistically probably since the Florida Water Days. We do update them as you go, but you can read things and you're saying, wait a minute, okay, I see that item there. If we're supposed to have 2-inch conduit, we better have 2-inch conduit in our standard, not 1 inch. The electrician we want 2 inch, let's make sure our standard is. So we have some work like that to do. It's not easy, and we got to make that a project to do that. So we're going to O&M and get a little bit of support on that. Meter and billing, we know we have a lot of opportunities to efficiencies on the meter and billing system. Our Munis system is kind of, we're pretty large, 55,000 meters on the Munis system. But what can we do to make that more efficient so the bills look crystal clear to our customers, that we can get that data that we read every hour, to use that data more electronically. So there's opportunities to do that. And we're going to look at some outside people. So that's some of the changes we need to do there. Will we get all those initiatives totally completed this year? I don't know. We're going to get them all started. We're going to get some completed, and any money won't get spent will then stay in the for future reserves. Probably worth noting the $2.5 million the current year. That's the money that's funded for the construction trailers, modular buildings that will be live in February for the utility workforce. We get the wastewater summary maybe. Wastewater summary, the new one. There's 4 new people in that this year, and that's $367,000. The op expense, that $1.5 million, the main items of that are electricity. Electricity is about $3 million a year. Chemicals are about $5 million a year. So you got, and then that's split between water and wastewater. Again, I'm sorry, I talk water and wastewater together. So that number of just electricity and chemicals is $8 million. That doesn't represent the $8 million. It probably represents 5 of that $8 million, and the other 3 of the $8 million is in the water line for just chemical and electricity. We have sludge hauling. We know sludge hauling going up. I might not have the exact numbers. I think we were paying about $105 a ton just to take our sludge from a wastewater plant, biosolids, and it goes up to the northern counties. And that's the contractor would not renew their price for a second year, so that's more about a $125 number now. So they're just costs, and that's a major issue in the industry as we speak, and that will be back. Somebody won't be here by the time we manage to figure that one out over the next couple of years, but it's a big issue. Fleet allocation, dinner fund transfers, mostly fleet with new people. So before we hire every one of these positions, we are looking at the fleet, and I believe we have an opportunity in utilities for efficiency, just like we do with the one-stop resolution on customers, on meter touching, pipe crews. We had that with our fleet too, and we'll work through that as we go. I think then we'll go to the next slide. On the utility water, again, 4 new people, increase for benefits. While those 4 new people, 14 total, again, numbers a little lopsided because there's reclassifications from people for different departments. The operating expenses, we have sludge disposal on the water side too, because we do lime softening, so that's about $1 million a year, number 2. Not as big as the cost on the, I say that, actually, maybe it is about even, we're over $1 million on both the wastewater side and the water side to dispose the sludge that comes out of the lime softening process. The fleet replacement cost is is the $275 million. That's the internal service. So the cost to maintain the fleet, again, we need to look at every bit of that. And then we do this 334. It's different than my normal accountant background. When new people get hired, the new vehicles fleet be counted as O&M, and the utility gets transferred over to the general fund. Long term, there's room to look at that. We don't need to do it now, but 2 or 3 years from now, if the balance sheet and the debt ratios are needed to be improved, if we ever do another bond deal, then things like that can be looked at to make sure that it's money one way where you're kind of leasing a vehicle or buying a vehicle. Certainly helps the balance sheet utility fund if you're buying the vehicle versus leasing. But those are just, really, again, focused on we are managing under this multi-year program. These are governors we have to do, make sure we stay within the budget authority on an annual basis that not only the council sets, we operate on, and if not, certainly Raylene and Helena and her team will make sure we stay within our budget limits, and we transfer some money in between categories during the year as needed. In another year or two, I think I'll have it absolutely memorized and question asked. But it's a little complicated. The last slide. So this is non-departmental. If I go and get the numbers, you got 92 million revenue was on the first slide. You got 44,319 is O&M, 92 minus 44 gives you 48. And 48 million is going to be 24 debt service right now. We know, and the debt service really tops out at $30 million year 3 through 7 in this, maybe 3 through 10. So the first 2 years of building the new plant, we're not making full principal payments, but this is a 6 years earlier than we did at the gap study, so some of the work in the last year and a half allowed us to at least make a significant principal payment. I think $4 million this year. The rest is going to be interest. And the first 2 years while construction kind of makes sense. The plant's not really, the major expenditure of that is not usable at that point in time. And then the $19 million, and I think there's another line here about $4 million in the current year. About $23 million is going to capital. Most of that's going to go into the R&R for the MOC fund. So this is, in the utility world, there's really 3 sets of books, and it's supposed to be 3 sets of books. There's a budget book, which is today. There's a debt service coverage cash flow basis, which is critical when you get a utility this size. That's really what you're running the business by on an annual basis. This is what we got to run and make sure we meet all procurement. And there's the gap set of book that usually only Helena and the CPAs look at. But those are important, and you need them, and external auditors. But normally, municipal utilities run off of this debt service basis. And it's good to look at the gap for depreciation, those high ratios. And we'll bring some reporting that will kind of sync those three sets of books together. Hope I answered the questions needed to be. We have anything else?
That's the last one you got, Brian?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions from the council? Yes, sir, go right ahead.
Brian, I just want to say that I'm so proud that we had the opportunity to bring you on board in the leadership and the level of analysis and not only kind of the current operational, improvements that you're making with our team, but certainly the long-term forecasts and the experience that you have as we decided to take this bond out to make the future improvements. You're the right guy at the right place at the right time for us, and I appreciate your leadership and that of your team. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Mr. Gar. I got to say, the team's done a real good job operating here, but we needed to bring some wings along in the business and the project delivery, and we're trying to build that up. And we appreciate the support. And it's not an easy task, but this is what we wake up to do every morning. This is why many of us have been practicing for 10, 20, 30, 40 years doing, so we appreciate the opportunity.
Don't date yourself, Brian.
For the customers.
I said, don't date yourself, Brian.
It's all right. I feel young, but I just can't run like I used to. My knee's bad.
All right, thank you, sir. Go right ahead.
Just to say that, yes, that the 3-year plan that we've approved is the easy part. The hard part is actually carrying out the plan, make sure it all gets done. So we appreciate that, and looks like we're making good progress.
Construction support here.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Helena? Or Ms. Ragsdale, who's up next?
Thank you, Brian. Director John Zobler will now present the building fund.
Thank you. Good morning, John.
Thank you, Gwen. And for future reference is John Zoblay. City Council, good morning. John Zobler. I wanted to go over briefly our building division overview. And the highlights for us are issuing just under 16,000 permits for the past fiscal year. We had the opportunity to speak to the Lieutenant Governor the other day, and the state legislature made some changes this year to allow for private plans examiners and also for private inspection was also allowed. And the reason that was occurring is that some municipalities, some governments are having a hard time getting plans reviews and inspections accomplished on time. I'm happy to say that this division does extraordinary with its plans review and its inspections and its turnaround time. So we are in no way contributing to that problem, and I'm very proud of the work that that group is doing. Next slide. And so this year, we're experiencing about a 24-month downward trend in permits and inspections, and our division has floated with that. We have a reduction of 2.89 positions. We have 4 frozen positions, 2 vacant positions. We've turned in 4 vehicles. Again, we're trying to keep our operations in sync with the revenues that are coming in and not filling positions that are not needed and turning in resources that are no longer needed. Having said that, we are still able to contribute a nominal amount to our fund reserve, and our fund reserve balance is 4 years operating average for the division. So again, we have a reduction in personnel and an approximate 11.2% reduction in our budget.
When you say 4 years, you mean the average of the last 4 years, correct?
Average, that's right.
So it's the 1 year's balance for the average of the last 4 years. Okay, just want to make sure. I know we have state statute that governs what can be in that balance.
4-year running average.
And John, the seat that Craig is going to be vacating, are you just freezing that one? That one's just on hold?
I haven't decided that yet, sir.
Okay.
Any questions?
Anything else? That's the last one?
Thank you.
I'm sorry, was there any questions from the council?
No, thank you, John. I appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. Director Matt Mansell will now present the Collection and Sanitation Fund budget.
Good morning, Matt.
You know what? I lied. I'm sorry. May I ask a question?
John,
I'm
you
so
got
sorry.
you got one
Yeah, I don't need him to come back up. I think Helena can probably answer it, so you don't have to track all the way back up here. But is Craig's position already budgeted for in fiscal year '27?
It is budgeted and is
Okay.
budgeted in your general fund
Okay, thank
under
you.
economic development. You're welcome.
Thank you. And it just, base salary. What is the base salary, do you know?
You were going to ask. I got it.
Sorry, I don't need an exact number if we have it around about.
And to not hold you up, when we talk about the general fund, I'll have
Okay,
that number for you.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Morning, Council. Matt Mansell, your Public Works Director. So this morning, just want to give you a brief overview of the Collection and Sanitation Division and then the FY '27 budget. So Collection and Sanitation is kind of organized in two major parts. The first being our oversight of the residential exclusive franchise contract that we have for residential collections. You can see that we have an average of around 5,000 customer cases that come into that office each year. They also investigate service trends and hotspots and monitor performance from the contractor to make sure that they're adhering to the contract requirements. And then we have our commercial, non-exclusive franchise side of the house that monitors commercial hauling within the city, ensuring that they have the proper franchise agreements in place and that they're adhering to the requirements of our ordinances on that. And then what we have is what's left over, and that division has really tacked on pretty much anything related to collections and sanitation that the city handles. So they do a lot of community outreach, our litter programs, control programs, all of our Adopt Everything programs as well, and also the event support and website management. So we have 3 positions within that. This chart just kind of shows you a breakdown of what their different responsibilities are. Our supervisor oversees the major FCC contract as well as the going-ons of our 2 compliance inspectors. And the compliance inspectors are obviously cross-trained to do all jobs, but one focuses primarily on the residential side and the other focuses primarily on the commercial side. You can see some of the statistics on the bottom. We currently have over 47,000 accounts for residential trash collection within the city. That's 30 residential routes. We had 5,200 and some change customer cases that were opened and followed up with throughout the year. That's about 45,000 tons of residential garbage that's collected annually. And on the commercial side, so far as of July of 2026, we've collected about $426,000 in commercial franchise fees. Again, three current positions, 3 planned for next year, so no changes there. And then this chart just shows a breakdown of our FY '27 budget. You can see that there is a CPI adjustment annually. It's capped at 4%. This year it's planned at 3.6%, and that's to the collection component. So there's 2 components of the residential rate. You have the collection component and the disposal component. There's also a planned buffer in there for the tipping fee adjustment. So we did have the renewal of our agreement with Volusia County. We went from 125% of the local county rate for disposal tipping fees to 150% last year when we signed that new MOA with Volusia County. If we did not have that agreement, it would be 200% of the county rate. So, but that should cover us for, I believe, the next 10 years. So, the budget increase of 5.2% is inclusive of that increase as well as the increase in number of accounts that we saw throughout the year. So, and pending any questions, that's the Collection and Sanitation Fund budget.
Matt, our contract for sanitation, when does that expire?
So it's a 7-year contract with 3 possible renewals. I believe we're in the 3rd.
It was fairly
Yeah,
recent.
year 3.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to get a ballpark.
Yeah.
Before my time.
Before you? Okay. Anything else from the council?
I had that same question, Mr. Mayor, so thanks for that. And then my other question is regard to the franchise fees. Do those franchise fees come back as part of the charges for services here, or where do those go?
So they, yeah.
So those are
front.
revenues to the general fund, and they're to support the streets division within Public Works.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was just wondering if that stayed within this or if it went back to general fund monies. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else from the council for Matt?
No.
I will just compliment you and Alyssa. I know that we did some restructuring, particularly with the commercial franchise fees, and I think it will result in higher revenues to that streets fund. So thank you for the work that you guys did to make that happen for us, and for working with, I know a lot of our third parties in the community, that it took some reaching out and working with them to get a lot of things done, so thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. Director Doug Akins will now present the IT Enterprise Fund.
I do have a follow-up on the fully burdened cost of the position is $145,000.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good morning, Council. Doug Akins, IT Director. Looking at the IT Enterprise Fund positions, this fund supports 1.5 employees, and there's no requested changes for the coming year. In the current year, the biggest projects we undertook in this budget were the connections for fiber to fire stations 22 and 26. The Fire 26 fiber connection was a large project because there was not a lot of fiber in that area, and we had to extend it to add redundancy so that if there is a cut, they won't go down. And for that project, $350,000 from the CIP was transferred into this budget to share in the cost. It was done 50-50. So there is a reduction of 28% next year, and that is due to that $350,000 being put in this year, which is not being put in next year. There is an increase in revenue shown. That is from the new cell tower leases that council has approved. So what we're expecting to receive from that is reflected here. And also next year's capital projects, we're looking at increasing fiber in some areas where we have some constraints, and also fixing some areas we noticed this year while doing some repairs in the network. And continuing our process of inventorying the fiber to make better use of the connections that we have. Any questions on the IT fiber budget?
Is the charges for services solely the leases, or does that also include the, I believe there's a telecom tax as well?
No, it's just either cell tower revenues or dark fiber leases, those sorts of things.
Okay, on our fiber loop.
Correct. Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you, Doug. We will now move to the.
Oh, I have one thing. It's kind of an aside. I'm sorry. We approved the leases for the cell towers, and we have revenue coming in. Can we get an update at some point on when they're going vertical with those new leases? Just want to be able to get that information out, because I get questions about, hey, I've got bad service in this neighborhood or that neighborhood, and I want to be able to tell them, hey, this is going vertical, and there's a lease for AT&T or Verizon or whoever coming up. So that should hopefully fix it. So I want to be able to be accurate about that. Certainly possible.
Yeah, they do take some time. There's all the environmental studies that take place up front, and then they have to kind of coordinate with the carriers with their budget cycles. So that's why our options are between 1.5 years. But we can definitely give some updates as they're coming online.
Okay, I appreciate it. I know we did kind of Palm Harbor, a little bit of Colbert, I think Seminole Woods, and then the R section, I believe, in the last year or so. We've talked about different things that are going on. So
yes, sir, we can do that for you.
Thank you.
And Doug, you followed up with that company that reached out to me, right? Did you?
Sorry?
That company that reached out to me about leasing, you followed up on that?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from the council? Going once, going twice. Oh, thank you, sir.
Okay, we will now move to the millage rate review and options.
General fund.
As requested by council at the July 14th General Fund Budget Workshop and the July 21st Budget Meeting, staff has prepared different options to include a compliant-based model for code enforcement, reduce the allocation for the Humane Society contract, add FTEs for Public Works, and add additional deputies as requested by the Flagler County Sheriff's Office for council consideration. We will review these one by one in the next few slides. Scenario 1 uses a rolled back millage rate of 4.1387 with an additional annual cost of $4.94 to residents per $100,000 in taxable value. Under this scenario, staffing and funding adjustments would include no new positions to the general fund, departments. 3 general fund administrative positions would remain unfunded. 1 engineering position remains unfunded. 5 new general fund position requests were denied. Reduce funding for the Flagler Humane Society. Reduce 11.5 FTEs in community development for a proposed complaint-based model for code cases, and add 2 Flagler County Sheriff's deputies.
Ma'am, can you go back, please?
Mhm.
So for our residents, so $4.94, let's say it's a $400,000 home, that's an annual increase of $19.76 or $1.64 per month. Okay? And just for the record, I don't support transitioning to a complaint-based system and reducing those 11.5 positions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So scenario 2 uses a millage rate of 4.1938, resulting in an additional annual cost of $10.45 per 100,000 in taxable value. Staffing and budget adjustments would include the 3 general fund administrative positions to remain unfunded. 1 engineering position remains unfunded. 5 new general fund positions were denied. Reduce funding for the Flagler Humane Society. Reduce 11.5 FTEs in community development for the proposed complaint-based model. Adding 5 Flagler County Sheriff's Deputy positions, and also adding 2 FTEs in Public Works.
And here again, this is for a $400,000 home. The increase would represent $41.80 annually, or $3.48 per month.
I have a question in regards to that specific number when we looked at scenario 1 for a rollback. So how does a rollback equal an increased cost per home?
So the rollback rate gives you the same rate for the existing properties. But if you have new construction in your residence, that's where that 4% growth would come from.
Got you, but from my understanding, when we're talking about, and this is dollars per 100K valuation, when we're talking about the new growth, that's supposed to be exited out of that calculation, right?
So the rollback rate this year, because there was a decrease in property values, is a higher number than your adopted.
No, I get that, right? So the rate goes up, right, to just equal the same amount of money as last year. But the number per 100K, to me, I don't get the concept of why that should go up, right? Because if the value of your property went down, I guess it does make sense. So the value of your property went down, but you still got to recoup the same revenue, right, for a rollback rate.
Correct.
So then that number per 100. So I think it's a little bit of a misnomer, right? Because we're saying the value per 100K has gone up, but if your house went down 40K in valuation, then the amount you're paying is less.
That is
right?
correct. Yes.
So potentially that rollback rate, and it's not based on individual homes, but it's based on the overall. But you're saying that the value or the cost per 100K went up, but the cost per resident shouldn't really go up.
And you're also going to have situations where, because of the Save Our Homes Act, there is significant taxable value, right, on the property. That's part of that portability that you can bring it when you purchase new homes. So you're going to have cases where, because the property values were increasing 10, 9%, 14 over the past few years, and they were homesteaded, those properties can only go up by 3%.
Right, there's a gap in
even though there might be, exactly, there's a cap. So even though property value might be going down this year for some of the newer properties, your older ones are still going to increase because they still haven't hit that
Right, and I think our
portability.
property appraiser had
Yes.
touched on that at the last meeting, that essentially, if it's gone up 30% over the last 5, 8 years, something like that, but it's capped at 3, even though it's not going up now, they're still going to bridge some of that gap between the cap and what actually occurred. I just wanted to point out that first slide is saying essentially what $16, $17 for a 400K home, that it actually is most likely not changing anything for the individual residents because the valuation of their home would have gone down based on that.
Yeah, depending on when you purchase your house.
And
That
it's
is
all on an individual basis. Each house is different.
And Go ahead.
Go right ahead.
Couple of questions on the rollback rate. Does the rollback rate include cost of living adjustment?
It includes maintaining our merit program with 3% that
What I'm saying is, it brings in the same number of dollars this year, or in the coming year, as we're getting this year. Are those dollars inflated or non-inflated dollars for the coming year?
So at the rollback rate, we would be looking at about $1 million less than what was on your July presentation. So your additional ad valorem revenues would be 2.8 million. So at what was presented in your July, we have built in a 3% merit in the program. We did not build a COLA into that program.
I think we're talking about two different things.
Two different
Oh,
things.
okay, I
The
apologize.
rollback rate
Yes.
says, basically, whether it's a year when we have a lot of inflation or not a lot of inflation, we take in the same number of dollars in the coming year that we took in the previous year. Start with that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Are the dollars for the coming year inflated dollars or non-inflated dollars?
None, because they're not, they're the exact same amount.
Right. So it's actually less. If you look at total value, it's less.
Yeah,
That's my
Yes,
point.
that is
CPI
correct, yes.
Right,
The
right. Okay,
purchasing
okay. That's-
power of that is less.
If overall CPI was 3% and we do a rollback, then we are minus 3% of what we had the previous year, essentially, even with the same dollars. In terms of,
And then the second question is, have we made any progress with Humane Society about their request to double cost per animal? Is anything happening with that right now? Because that's one of the things that's, in each of these slides.
I might need Mr. Zobler to come up, but my understanding is that they're still requesting an increase in the fees for their cost recovery-based model, but John will speak to it.
Thank you. Discussions are very active through emails, and I've most recently asked them, I looked at their IRS filings for the last 5 years, and I see what their revenues and expenditures are, and I'm asked them to explain why the fee increase is necessary when we see them surplusing a significant amount each year. So those negotiations are ongoing.
Just for council's benefit too, so Mr. Zobler and I met about this specific issue yesterday, and we looked historically what what our contract with Flagler Humane Society has looked like as far as monetarily what we've given them, and there's about a 10% increase year after year that we see is kind of trending. So I was going to propose to council that we work in a 10% increase again this year, and that's it. And, obviously it takes two people to enter into a contract, but to me, when we look historically as to what we've given them, it's been roughly 10%. So I know we talked about different options, but I just wanted to share that with council.
Again, our current contract, we think this year will come in around $190,000. So to the Vice Mayor's point, we should be considering a 10% increase over that. And currently, they're requesting $300 per animal for a 5-day stay. Currently, we're paying $156 per animal for a 5-day stay.
so just in terms of our allocation, right? So if we have roughly 200K allocated, right? If their request were to happen, right? I'm not saying it would be from our end, but what happens when we run out of, because essentially we're talking about twice the cost, right? So presumably, if everything stays on track with what happened this past year, that we would run out of money in that allocation, much earlier in the year. What is our policy past that? Do we continue to take animals there and transfer from another fund? What do we do?
Well, number one, I don't think they would enter into an agreement for, and I'm sure that they would enter into an agreement for a lower amount. To answer your question, we don't have an alternative at this point for dogs in particular.
But still, if if we hit our allocation, what are we continuing to do to take dogs there?
Well, our allocation, our budget amount for this year was 156 because of the significant and numerous high-volume animal cases we've had. Our medical expenses and our shelter expenses and our legal expenses have driven the budget to 190.
Okay, so we will
adjustments.
continue, and then we shift that from somewhere else. Okay.
I was going to ask for consensus at the end, but since we're touching on this now, can you explain, John, a little bit what we talked about yesterday in the kind of the lack of restitution that we're getting for some of these larger animal abuse cases that's costing the city a lot of money?
Yes, most recently with the U-Haul case where the dog and the birds were impounded and the people were arrested. Those people were required to post a $500 bond. They posted $50, and they have since left the state, we believe. We don't anticipate restitution. We've incurred well over $800 in the care of those animals. But quite often what staff is advising me is that we do not get restitution. It takes years if we ever get it at all.
Yeah, so I was just going to ask for consensus for me to meet with Jason, our ASA in the county, as well as maybe any folks really who can help with some stricter enforcement so that we can work on getting more restitution or ensure some of these offenders are appropriately punished so that we're not, because our taxpayers are paying for these lawbreakers, and they're egregious lawbreakers, and many of them are repeat offenders. They just hadn't gotten caught yet. I obviously would never make any decisions on behalf of council, but to have the ability to meet with some folks who are on the enforcement side of some of these animal cases so that, I think we're trying to address everything we can from our side, from volunteers in the community, obviously, folks like SMART, Dog Father, all those, and the Humane Society is doing what we can. But unless we're addressing it from an enforcement side as well, from that criminal side, we can only do so much.
So I guess the question is, and so you're talking about enforcement so obviously we're working on some code changes to try to shore up our side to make sure there's enforcement from our side. But is there anything we can do in terms of that criminal side? That's not within our purview, right?
Not within our purview, no.
So
I mean, the only thing we can do is legislatively make other things violations. Like we're working on the repeat offender ordinance. We're working on non-tether, working on things right now legislatively, but obviously there's other branches of government, right? So
yeah, no, I'm just trying to, so basically all we can ask for is further enforcement of the existing criminal laws, right? Okay. Yeah, no, I'm completely fine with that. I've been working with John to try to do the code side of it for a while, so, I agree.
Anyone have any issue?
I'm good with it, and thank you for asking for our consensus. I like the school district that runs wild, right, in the county. So, and if you need help with RJ Larissa, let me know. He's a good friend. So.
Yeah, no, I'll certainly report back on any progress we make on that side. So thank you, John.
Hey, John, before you leave, sorry, it's my turn. It's my turn in the barrel.
Strap a yo-yo on him.
Yeah. Can you go back, please? One slide. So reducing the community development department by 11.5%. So it's a policy decision that we're discussing here, and how that works. And city manager, I know you've worked. We discussed yesterday that you worked as an administrator elsewhere, and you've seen the effects of this kind of change in policy. What do you think the impact will be on our community if we went from complaint-based versus being proactive?
Well, I think that even if we go to a complaint-based system, there's still going to be, as we had talked about before, and as the Vice Mayor had mentioned before, this 180 review is going to happen. We're going to still write up more cases than we thought. There'll be a delay and a lag in service responding to calls and to get those prosecuted. But again, that's a policy decision whether you want to go officer initiated and or complaint or just complaint basis. But clearly, in our pilot week program, there were 816 observed violations that we did not write, and during that time period, we received approximately 91 complaints from citizens. That doesn't reflect animal control complaints or urban forestry complaints.
Okay, thank you. City manager, do you have any thoughts on your past experience in this area?
Yes, just extreme caution in this particular decision. It's not something I've spoken plainly about this. It's not something I recommend because of what I've seen happen as a manager, both as a manager under this type of system overall, as well as one that's converted to it. The complaint will flip because what the work of our code enforcement does is the same as what you see the public works in our common areas. So it's a two-part equation to make our community look the way it does. So there will be a definite degradation in that. It's just a natural cause and effect. Thank you.
And then my last question is, here on this slide, and I think we had it on the previous slide, add 2 FTEs to Public Works, but you mentioned we had city manager equal to, valid requests for, new FTEs from the other departments. I think you said the number was 45.
Yes, sir. It was, I believe the number was 47 total, and if we count those 2 out, yes, sir, we had 45 other very legitimate requests for personnel over the year that the budget process, of course, we had to call those out.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so moving along, scenario 3 is our proposed fiscal year 2027 budget as presented on July 14th. Uses the maximum millage rate of 4.2296, resulting in an additional annual cost to residents of $14.03 per 100,000 in taxable value. This option is the maximum millage rate. This option maintains conservative staffing approaches as follows. No new general fund positions were added. 3 general fund administrative positions remain unfunded. 1 engineering position remains unfunded. 5 new general fund positions were denied. No new Flagler County Sheriff's Deputy positions would be added.
So again, on this one, at a $400,000 home, it's $56.12 increase, or $4.67 per month. And I was just looking at the sheriff's report from last year. So we currently fund, and please correct me if I'm wrong. Bernie, you're back there. If I'm wrong, let me know, okay? We currently fund 67 positions if you don't count the new 9 ones that are being requested by the sheriff. Sworn deputies, I'm tracking 251, which includes the detention facility, so not just road deputies. So when you take that into consideration, the city of Palm Coast is paying, just under 27% of the sheriff's budget. And so these, as we look at all this, I hearken back to our SAP priorities, right, that we approved. And you guys wouldn't happen to have that available, would you? Because I'd like to go through it because I think it's helpful to try to figure out from a policy-making perspective. You got them? I got it right here as well.
Can you pull those up, Ms. Ragsdale? While we're waiting for the folks in the back, there's something wrong with the volume. YouTube is having issues, so if someone can check that, if somebody can relay that to the tech guys.
Okay, thank you. So if you look at objective 1, right, sustainable environment and infrastructure, we are, I think, checking the box on tactics 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3. Is there any disagreement there? I think we're all vested in that. If we move to objective 2, so design, implement citywide plan for road repair and road safety. I would say 2.4, which is present the finalized plan and funding recommendations of the city council, and then 2.3, conduct a comprehensive funding analysis and present the city council's recommended funding strategies. I think this is where some of us are kind of looking at, maybe using fund balance to help improve our roads. If you look at objective 3, strong, resilient economy. We're doing everything we can, leveraging everything we can. We've moved some of the funds, the tax incentives for the promenade forward, and we're selling property for the purposes of economic development. We're maximizing the effectiveness, 3.4 on this objective to the CRA to help expand and improve. And, certainly we're all focused on 3.5 with a sharpening the focus and development of the downtown urban core to include the stage, which we're already doing, and the YMCA partnership, which funding would come out of the CRA. And then also we've received matching support and appropriations from the state. If we look at objective 4, implement the Parks Master Plan, I think we're doing some great work here with regards to developing a plan and adding additional light at Diamond. We've made those improvements at Indian Trails. Mapping, signage, defining, I think we're meeting the objective there. Safe and reliable services under objective 5. Design and produce a technology improvement plan, focus on technology for the city government. We just looked at that budget there, and I think we're in a good spot. And I think a lot of the things that we had last year have moved to operations, right? So a lot of this stuff has been picked up by just day-to-day work since we were able to shift it from a focused priority over to day-to-day business. Objective 6, continue the saltwater canal dredging initiative. I know this is important to a lot of our residents in the C section, and we're certainly pursuing grants and doing everything we have. My only caution here, and city manager, you mentioned that because of the piece of pursuing grants, that we are not going to be funding a full-time grant position at the budget request that you submitted. Is that correct?
Excuse me, correct. From the SAPs, that position as well as the skate park is not able to be funded, but still remain in the SAPs.
Okay. Then if we go to objective 7, I think we're all in support in advance of arts and cultural historical initiative facilities. I'm really proud of the work that Preston Zepp is doing. I think our grants that we provide for our different cultural organizations are a must-have. I think that it's critically important to also, ensure that we preserve history, for the future, to include Fire Station 22 and things of that nature. And then quality of life for essential workers. I think this is important because if public safety is our priority, then certainly we need to make sure that the well-being and support systems for first responders are in place. And then the last one, let's see, objective 9, strengthen emergency response through sustainable funding, evaluating the feasibility of implementing dedicated fire service fee support. We're knocking all that out. And, when with regards to exploring the development of funding in hazmat, that's a huge gap that we have here in our community. And I know all of us that went up to Tallahassee, right? We spoke to the CFO about this, and we spoke directly to Lieutenant Governor Collins last Friday about this as being a need. So that certainly something we can still work on, but it's not something right now that we can budget for, right? So that's a gap. And then objective 10, expand the city's ability to secure external funding opportunities through the evaluation development of dedicated grants functions. Again, we're not going to have that full-time position. And so I wanted to run through our strategic priorities because as I look at our budget and the millage and the guidance that we've given our city staff and our city manager on what we're looking for, I think most of it's met, or we've checked the block on it. And even with that, there's some things that we're not doing because we're choosing, we've chosen the maximum millage rate of where it is. Where I sit, I don't support the policy initiative of a complaint-based code enforcement. I think that, that's a huge hole to make in our community development department, and I don't support the idea of taking down almost 12 positions while bringing 2 others back when we have another 45 that could be just as valid. And so, where do we go from here? And I wanted to share that from my perspective, just to help lead into the discussion on the scenarios presented by staff.
Thank you, sir. Anything else? Anything, Councilman Sullivan?
Yeah, I'd just like to address one issue, and that is, I think it's the elephant in the room here, is what do we do with the 3-year sheriff and deputy increases? I think the vice mayor and myself are the only ones who are actually in an elected position when decision was made to go forward with a 3-year program. And I don't disagree with that, but I do think we've got a big thing hanging over our heads, and that is the amendment from the state. If that amendment goes through, and we try to fund the government at some level of service that we have right now in the coming year, the following year has become a real problem. And if we were to add 9 new sheriff deputies this year, not knowing what's going to happen with that amendment, we're putting a tail, which when we talked about the budget process this year, I think based on the fact that we have the problem of that amendment being passed or not passed, there's some things we just need to do, and I think things can be corrected later. So I would not say that we don't say no new sheriff's office deputy positions, but we say we need to pause that request and take it on based on what happens with the amendment coming up in November. I know that's a difficult way to budget, but I think it's being realistic about what can happen if we were to add all 9 of those deputies right now, because of the tail on it. That it's not just if it were a 1-year thing, okay, but the problem is every year from now on, as far into the future as we can see, we're going to have to pay that $1 million or so in the budget, like it or not, because once the deputies are hired, it's a long-term process. So, and as far as the quality of service that the sheriff provides, for instance, the Hammock doesn't pay any extra funding. Flagler Beach has their own police department, they pay extra funding. Benell has their own police department, they pay extra funding. But for instance, places like the Hammock, I don't think the Hammock is getting worse police support, deputy support than we get here in Palm Coast. And if you really look at the total numbers, and you add in the amount of millage rate coming from the city of Palm Coast to support the police department, without our contract, it's already 80% of the millage rate that we send to the county and that supports the police department comes from the taxpayers in Palm Coast. When you add in the additional deputies based on the 3-year program that we pay for in a separate contract, that 80% goes up even further. So if you look at money coming from the city of Palm Coast and its citizens, we're covering over 80% of the overall sheriff's budget.
Thank you, sir. Anything else?
Yeah, I just wanted to add my thoughts to that discussion, in particular the sheriff's contract. I think, I agree. I think, it's a tough decision to make, but I think it's prudent to take our time with this and as you said, maybe defer this decision until we know more.
I don't think we should say anything like no.
Right. I mean,
I think the pause is maybe the correct word.
Yeah, I think, in the current environment, we don't know enough right now to know where or what we can afford later. Not right now, but later, right? And as you said, once hired, then you're either going through a layoff process of deputies, which nobody wants to go through, or you're paying for this long-term recurring cost that you've added. So I agree that I think in terms of that, my position would be to pause. I applaud all the work that the Sheriff's Office does. They do a great job. Obviously, we have a very safe community because of them. And so the ask would be hold the line for 1 year till we know what's going on in the future with this funding situation, at least from my position.
Thank you, sir.
So,
Vice Mayor?
thank you. I have a question. If we were to go with this current budget, because this is the same proposal that we received almost a month ago, nothing's changed about it. What are I don't consider no new positions and frozen positions to be meaningful cost savings. What are the meaningful cost savings that have been reflected in this millage rate?
So, the majority of the costs that are associated with the general fund are in public safety, fire, the contract with the sheriff's office, and Public Works. Those were the majority of the costs, so.
And Parks and Rec, right?
And Parks and Recreation, Parks Maintenance. So as far as cuts in those divisions, what we did was freeze positions. We did no new programs. Like, for example, Public Works wanted to do a sidewalk repair program, but that would have been a new addition to 27, so we cut those. They made over 20 position requests for the budget, and we cut all of the positions because we did no new positions. And then any new equipment or vehicle type of requests were also removed.
Okay, thank you.
For,
Go ahead,
oh,
sorry.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
So for the administrative positions where we had a little bit more leeway, that's where we froze positions. You'll see up there the 3 frozen in administration and the 1 in engineering to provide additional costs savings so that we could come within that millage.
So I think the issue that I'm having with the current budget, set the sheriff's deputies aside because they're not even funded in this specific budget. I am deeply frustrated that in, what is this, a $72 million proposed general fund budget? Ms. Alves?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So in a $72 million general fund budget, we are looking at a tax increase while still not providing any meaningful cost savings, not based on what we could do in fiscal year 27, but what we currently have. We have a constituency with a very large population on fixed incomes. We are in a tough economy, and we have the state clearly telling us, cut government spending. Not freeze government spending, cut government spending. Shrink government. Yet we have in front of us no new sheriff's deputies, even though we committed to a 3-year program. And by the way, they asked for 9. We've gone down to 5. I don't know what the county is going to do, so I think there's some room to talk to the county about them funding some and maybe us going down in the amount that we fund, but we still have an increased millage rate. So, you know, my position is the data shows that our growing population, when they did the study back in 2020 or 2021, the data showed at that time we were behind over 30 deputies. And that is how we came up with the plan to fund for those 3 years. So, you know, it's frustrating for me because we already knew what the need was back then. It's not that the need for that has not changed. And to me, public safety needs to be a priority. City manager, during our meeting, you told me that we cannot afford to fund even a single deputy, and this was probably 2 months ago when we first met. It was, we cannot afford to fund a single deputy without raising taxes.
Actually, I said we tried to price 4, and that number came back not being able to afford. The underlying cause of the majority of this is the 23 cents on the dollar that the millage rate raises. It's the funding. Our expenses are tight. Our annual audits show that we manage our money well. It's the service level expectation that's so high. That's where we have to cut because it all goes back to the 23 cents on the dollar.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree that out of every ad valorem dollar, the fact that we only get 23 cents is not incredibly difficult. I don't disagree with that. My point is that we were asked during meetings with administrative staff, because of the current status of things, we were asked what level of service we wanted to provide for all of our departments. This carried with it the implication that our answer alone would determine the tax rate. In other words, we were presented with 2 choices, either reduce services in order to avoid a tax increase or maintain services and increase taxes. And I have never accepted that those should be the only 2 theories, that those are the only 2 options. And unfortunately, I believe that that's the corner that this council has been backed into because we were all asked, what's your level of service? That implicates the fact that we either need to raise taxes to keep levels of service the same or we can reduce taxes by cutting the level of service. That means we're not finding any efficiencies or meaningful cost savings in order to cut taxes without reducing services. That's a very frustrating corner to be backed up into. And, you know, the one example that we came up with was, well, maybe we can cut in code enforcement. When really the beginning budget process should have been aggressively searching for cost-saving efficiencies and other meaningful cost savings, not let's immediately attack our level of service. That framework has shaped the conversation. That framework is why we're talking about cutting code enforcement. One example is code enforcement. There's probably many others. And philosophically, I believe in limited government. I believe that we shouldn't have people going on regular routes and citing them for their grass height. And I understand that many residents in our infill lots appreciate the beauty and the quality of life that that proactive code enforcement model provides. But I also believe in limited government. So when I go back to my core conservative policies, if we can't find efficiencies, if we can't find cost savings, if we're going to have to talk about public safety versus, hey, you painted your house the wrong color or your trailer is parked in your driveway, I'm going to choose public safety every day of the week and twice on Sunday. But I don't think that should have been the first place that we went. When I was faced with that choice, that's the choice that I made. But I would say that this discussion should never have been the first place we went. And I feel like it was the first place we went. And I am ashamed of myself for not pushing back more. I'm ashamed that I didn't say, wait a minute, show me in the $72 million budget, show me where we can make cuts and find efficiencies first. And I don't think that we actually had that in-depth conversation. I do not want to lay off a single employee. I have consistently advocated for competitive health insurance, fair compensation, and merit increases that are truly based on job performance. Workforce reductions were not my first choice, nor are they anything that I take lightly. But when the budget is presented to us, contains no meaningful operational savings, and instead relies on increasing taxes, these difficult discussions become unavoidable. So, last week from the dais, I asked our city manager to return with additional opportunities to reduce costs. As of our meeting yesterday and as of our meeting here today, I am looking at a budget that is exactly the same as we saw 4 or 6 weeks ago, whenever it was first presented. And there have been no proposed changes other than the ones I have personally proposed. Nothing that reduces what we're spending. So, you know, I would say it's not this council's job to go line by line in a budget, through a $72 million budget in the general fund to find operational efficiencies. That's a responsibility of executive management, and our role is to establish the policies that you all shape. And I get it that that ties to level of service to an extent, but there is also a very strong degree of management that has to find efficiencies, not in what we could do in the future, but in what we're doing today. And that's what I'm missing here. So, you know, I've heard from employees, and this is really unfortunate, I've heard it from employees that, you know, their jobs are being sacrificed for sheriff's deputies. That's not true. That's not true, because in this job, we're talking about a tax increase. A tax increase. Even if we had no new sheriff's deputies, we have to increase taxes. So it's not that their jobs are being traded for deputies. It's either raise taxes and keep everybody on board because we couldn't find any other cost savings, or we have to start thinking about our workforce, and that's unfortunate. So it's my opinion that when the question was asked, what level of service do you want, every department was effectively put at risk, every single one. It wasn't one or the other. We had to choose because that's the corner we were backed into. So like I said, I'm disappointed in myself that I didn't push back until now. But I'm not prepared to support eliminating code enforcement, and I won't support the budget in front of me because I think we can do better than this. You know, ultimately, it's a responsibility of the CEO of this organization to bring the council a budget that reflects efficiency, innovation, and fiscal discipline. And I believe our residents deserve that analysis. I think that this council deserves that analysis. And I don't think that our employees should bear that burden. So I reject all of the budgets that we've seen here today. And I would ask that we look harder and work harder. And I understand it's hard. And this, you're coming into, city manager, a hard initial budget. But that's the job. And I, again, would say we need to look again. What other efficiencies and cost savings in the current budget can we make before we start talking about sacrificing public safety and sacrificing current employees? That I haven't seen yet.
We presented this budget based on what we were given for SAPs, those that were in the past that have rolled to operations, those that were currently being worked on and not yet completed, and those that were approved along with the service level expectations. That is the policy that we need in order to make the adjustments that are necessary for the policy. Another factor is we've had 4 and 5 fold increases in cost post-COVID. Another factor is that if we had simply left our millage at what it was in the 2018-19 budget year and not progressed and not even messed with it up, down, or anything that's been done with it in between, and this is part of the financial analysis, we'd be over $51 million to the good. It's a combination of things. It's responsible spending and planning, and it's also appropriate funding. This year alone, because of this current budget year's decision on millage, we have lost over $8 million in potential revenue, and that's buying power over the years, like Councilor Sullivan mentioned earlier. So it's a combination of things, I agree, but staff has looked every single place that we could possibly cut based on the guidance that we received through policy. What we need is policy changes as far as what service level expectations are.
So is the assertion being made that in every single department out of the general fund budget, in order to keep the same level of service, there are zero cost savings or efficiencies that anybody can achieve before we start talking about raising taxes? Is that the absolute assertion that's being made here today?
What has been shared with me, ma'am, and what I have also seen in the time that I've been here is that we have cut every single possible place that we can and still meet the mission. If the mission needs changing in order to be funded, then we need a mission change. And those mission changes come through the service level reductions. The only reduction that we've received to date has been via the code enforcement model change. And that's why we bring these back to you. Because so far, that's the only reduction that we have been given. Other reductions will enable us to make other projections. But to date, that's all we've received.
Helena, can you give me the cost if we do the COLA versus if we do the merit? What's the difference between the two?
So I do have the difference between the COLA, if you did the 2.3% versus the 3% merit. It wouldn't bring significant changes in the first year because the COLA hits all at once in January and the merit is throughout the year for employees' evaluations.
Their service year. Yeah,
That is correct. So the savings between it would be the 0.7% savings would be going forward. So it really wouldn't bring us in the 2027 year. I do have to say this is a challenging year because it's the first time in a long time that our property values have decreased, right? The reason why we weren't able to meet the same level and be able to add new services and maintain the millage is exactly that. We're not in double-digit property value increases. So our property increase is what, I believe 4%, right, for the year, and that's the first time we've seen that in a long, long time. So part of the budget, the way it was developed was we already know we don't have the 10% that we had last year, right? We don't have the 14% we had the year before. So we still had to deal with the increases in inflation, right? We still have to deal with the increase in costs. We still had to deal with operational costs that are coming with the 2 new fire stations that are coming on board, as well as transfer Fire Station 22 to the Parks and Recreation Department, right? It still needs electricity, water, insurance, all of those, services. So we had to incorporate those into the budget. That's why we started with no new personnel requests. And then we went to, well, we can't hire these positions. Can we freeze them? Freezing is the same thing as removing. It's just that the need for them hasn't gone away. It's just that we're not funding them currently. So that's the measure that we took. We did that first. And then we went, is there anything new that you're requesting in this budget? A new program, a new training, a new travel? And if it wasn't within the fire department, it basically was cut from the budget. And that's how we arrived. Once we got to the bottom number, the millage came up to be the 4.2296. And that's where we are today. We even cut COLA. In the past, we've had COLA and merit in our plan. And we cut the COLA and just went with the merit. So we took a lot of measures to get to where we are and to be able to present to you that 4.2296.
Thank you, ma'am. The reason I said that is because after we saw the email at the last meeting where it showed the people that got merit and stuff like that, I seriously, and I discussed this with the city manager yesterday, I think we need to take a good look at our merit program, and because if some of the things that I've seen are panning out, there's something wrong with the program. So to me personally, I would suggest just going with a COLA across the board for the employees this year. Mr. Attorney Man, did you get that question I had about if the referendum passes concerning law enforcement?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, you asked me to look if there was any funding mechanism with the new bill, and there is no funding mechanism. It just says that funding will be provided for law enforcement, but no funding mechanism at all.
All right,
You shall fund it, but you have no new way of funding it.
Well, our conversation was, when we were outside, me and the city manager and the attorney was, being able to meet those expectations. And we are not a well, I guess we are. We are a contract city. So when it comes down to law enforcement, it's what we can afford. It's a contract. It's plain and simple. We are a contract city. That's how it works. And I don't know how the state could legislate how you provide your services at what level, depending on your revenue sources. That's one question I had. For me, when we did not go with the full millage increase of 4.55, that eliminated the sheriff to begin with. And I can tell you from what I've been seeing and what I'm trying to prep for in the next coming 2 years, if this referendum passes, is where we're at right now and how we go forward with funding. And for me personally, that's why I was like, hold the line this year, see what happens with the referendum before you make any decisions on drastic increases like that. It's, as far as getting to the millage rate where we want it, it's across the board. It's not, I would never eliminate one department or cut a department in half. I just don't see that happening. My suggestion when I was asked about levels of service was cuts across the board to get where we need to be. And I do think we need to do the rollback. At a minimum, I'd go further than the rollback. And I think we had that discussion during the last workshop. People are angry and they want their taxes reduced. When you look at this out on the side of this here, it says per 100,000 at $14. People don't care about that. They care about their taxes going up. And when they look at that trim notice, if their taxes went up from last year, they're pissed off. And I don't blame them, because the property values have increased so much over time. Even those people that were protected by Homestead have been paying more money, and they're tired of it. So I think that's our approach should be cutting across the board to get where we need to be for the full rollback or even further than the rollback, so we can actually tell the residents, we cut your taxes this year. That's my expectations. As far as staffing level, I do not want to gut a department. I don't see that happening. So That's my take on the situation. Any follow-ups?
So going off of that, Mayor, if the request was, okay, find 10% cut in all of the general fund budgets, then that would, I guess, correlate to the city manager's question to a 10% reduction in level of service. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. Have you seen that? Has that been proposed to you?
We have not seen that.
That's the problem. That's the problem. There's been, this option has been shoved down our throat as a recommended proposed budget to raise taxes. Why? When we have expressed from this council, we don't want to raise taxes. Why has nothing else been looked at and proposed other than this? And then, oh, well, let's also do what, blame it on Teresa. She wants to go ahead and cut a whole department. But nothing else has been proposed to look at cutting a level of service by 10%, even though I remember you saying that from the dais. Can we look at this option? That's my frustration, and that's why I can't accept any of these budgets, because I don't think, and we don't have to right now. I'm not really sure. I mean, I get it, we're getting close, but we don't have to choose our millage rate right now. So I just still think that there's work to be done, and there's other options that we can look at, and I don't want to see this being in the recommended budget again, because this council has already said we don't want to raise taxes. Now, I know Councilman Gambaro, you laid out, hey, it's only this much per household, and I can understand your position there, but the consensus that I got from the last time we talked about millage, the main consensus was we don't want to raise taxes.
We will have to choose between raising taxes or providing services.
Well,
There's no magic to this.
at our level, we can say, well, we want this and we want that. But when it comes down to it, you set the millage rate, that's what the city manager has to operate in. Cuts where needed, you've got to be able to manage your systems. And if this is the money you have, this is the money you have. So when it comes down for us to decide on the millage rate, we go down to 4.1 mills. I'd be perfectly happy with that, because it's actually a tax reduction. That's your budget. That's what you work with. But I am, like I said before, I am not in favor of gutting a whole department or splitting a department. But from our first workshop, I felt that the consensus among the council was sheriff's deputies are not going to happen. It's not going to happen this year, and I'm sorry for that. But we have to prepare for what's coming, and I'm not going one way or the other on referendum. That's for the constituents to do. But we as a council, especially the two that are remaining, we have to prepare for what's coming if it passes. Anything else from the council?
Mr. Mayor, I just, with regards to the numbers and the increase, I just wanted to highlight what that looked like. And look, I get it, right? We made some tough decisions in '25, really tough decisions for our community. And, I think our residents are looking for a break, but I thought it was important to break it down what it is, right? Just so they understand the differences. And please, to our residents that are out there, give us feedback, on this. I know most of the feedback I've heard has been, hey, no more taxes, no more. Please help us out. And we understand that, but as we look at the totality of the services that we provide at each kind of phase, this is what the commitment would be going forward or not, right? And so I just want to lay that out so our residents have the numbers with each of the different scenarios.
Yeah, I did the napkin math, the back of the napkin math. 4.1 mil would be 45.07. That would be our total. So we still have time to decide, but we do need to. I want to ensure the people in code enforcement. There's no intent of gutting that department. I think they had a meeting this morning, and they're a little bit on edge. But I see cutting proportionally across the whole spectrum of systems rather than one department, plain and simple.
Mr. Mayor.
Just so I'm on record on that, I also don't agree with cutting code enforcement. So I'm not sure we have the votes to do that on the council. And I can say that here, but I can't discuss it anyplace else. So I just want to make sure, we don't need to do a vote on that, but I don't think the votes are here on the council to take that action.
But one thing I forgot to mention was trying to get Matt those two positions. For those two positions, proportionally across the systems, if you can offer a job to someone, if you're cutting them from one department and they can go to work for Matt and his crew, so be it. And I'd rather have an internal hire if Matt's willing to take them on. But it's across all systems, not one department.
Those are the types of decisions that executives make. That's my point. That's the innovation, that's the thinking that needs to occur that I haven't seen. And that's the frustration that I'm feeling.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
What we need then is clear direction from council, because we never got council's clear consensus that you would not consider raising taxes. That was not part of the list that was given to us, and neither was a percentage cut across the board. We were coming to you based upon what your SAPs and your service level expectations are for the city and the expected work to be done. So we just need clear guidance on what policies changes you want as far as those service level expectations go. Is it a flat 10%? We just need clear direction on it so that we make sure we are packaging to the way the council wants.
The very first question should be, is there a way that we can cut 10% from each budget without affecting level of service? If that answer is no, then the next question is the clear direction to cut level of service by 10%? So is that answer no, we can't cut 10% from each budget without affecting level of service?
We just need the direction on what y'all want that to look like. If it's 10%, we will compute 10% and bring it back to you and let you know what it looks like. We won't be able to do that right here from the dais.
Right, but city manager, I'm asking a very pointed question. Has an analysis already been done as to whether or not 10% from each budget can be cut without affecting level of service? Has that been done yet?
Given that that direction has not been given, I do not believe so.
And I say that's where we start.
And I just need that from consensus.
We have consensus, and I would suggest, if you could, it's just me, if you guys want to go along with it, bring us back a budget that's 4.1 mills. So that'd be your revenue is 45.07. Make it fit. See if we can make it fit. Do we have consensus on that?
So-
We're actually doing a tax cut if we go with 4.1.
So I understand where you're coming from for this, Mr. Mayor. You know, when we talk about the way the state has approached us and the pressure they put on us in terms of, you know, budgets, the CFO's office doing, you know, very high-level audits of spending, so to speak, their guidance that they've given is previous budget plus growth plus a CPI. And they actually I saw in Jacksonville a new calculation in his budget, or his projected, you know, fiscally responsible budget was, there was a 5% fudge factor that he included in there. Yeah. So, you know, I think the expectation from the state, and I haven't gotten this analysis back because the school board just kind of presented their budget, but given that the school board, their funding is set by the state, right? I wanted to see what the state thinks is appropriate for a budget increase. So I haven't got it back, but I think the state has told us essentially that they expect conservative growth, but a little bit of growth, right, to kind of handle CPI. So I don't know if I'm at the let's go to 4.1. I think asking for what a rollback looks like with other changes besides this rollback version is more appropriate. I don't know if I could go negative unless we're all okay with. I mean, my expectations would be if we're going below rollback, there's going to be some significant cuts in some services. I mean, that to me is unavoidable. I do believe that there's room for efficiencies. There's no budget that doesn't have room for efficiencies in it, in my eyes. So I want to look at it some more and see what some other options are. I don't know if 4.1 is realistic, because then they're doing that work, and if I can't support it anyways, then what was the point of going through that exercise?
I would also, Helena, I know you had to have figured it out, how to do the formula for the CFO. And excuse me, and I know a lot of people don't agree with the way he came down on that, but the Madison Institute, whatever he's using, could we get the calculation? Because we had a modest increase in population. It was only like 8,000 people. Can you do that calculation and see what would be acceptable from the CFO's perspective? and see if we're in that ballpark? Can you do that?
I was actually trying to do it myself, Mr. Mayor. The only issue we don't have is, so I was looking at the average year over year for this last 12 months to try to get the CPI to do that adjustment, but we don't have it for the remainder of the budget. We could do it for the last 12 months running, even though that falls into a previous budget if we want to. But we don't know what, the next 2 months year over year CPI changes are going to be. But most of them have hovered around 3%, I think.
If you just use, I guess what standard, CPI would be, if we could, I would like to know that number. Because a few people's got different calculators. You're my finance, and I want to hear it from you. Because that's how we determined last year, we were 5% over. We overspent by 5%, which was $3.5 million. And what happened? We have $2 million rollover, so really it was 1.5 that we overspent last year.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I went through our SAP priorities because I'm trying to process through, each of our priorities and how much we're spending in each of those categories, right? Because this drives everything, right? We're setting the policy, these are our priorities, and these are what we're shooting for. I think for me, it would be helpful to, objective number one, what are the costs associated with, if you're talking service level, city manager, what are the dollar amounts associated with this objective, and in which departments do they fall? I think it might help us kind of troop the task, if you would, a little bit better of, based on the priorities and guidance that this council has given, where are we spending a majority of our dollars? Like, for example, if I go to Objective 6, Continuous Saltwater Canal Dredging Initiative, that's an important initiative, but how much are we actually spending on it, right? And how many departments does it touch, and is that an opportunity for savings? Is that something we pause, but it's important to our residents? We got to talk through that. But to me, it's use the guidance that we've given you and maybe kind of bucket it and see how we can potentially come back and find some cost savings there. I don't know, just a recommendation, but I think at the end of the day, let's see where we can find some efficiencies in accordance with the guidance, unless we choose to change some of these priorities.
Well, I can agree. I mean, I can see what you're saying, but keep in mind, too, that a lot of our SAP priorities get paid out of fund balance, which is a different conversation to an extent. I mean, it could contribute to an ongoing cost in the future. It could be funded. There's a number of things that it could be funded by in the future. But ultimately, a lot of our SAP, like what we're going to pay for SAP, will come out of fund balance. So I think it's just important, too, to at least keep that in mind as well.
I think, yeah, the vast majority of what we're talking about with budget is going to be operations and service level basis, and then these other things are things we're kind of sprinkling on the top, so to speak, or reprioritizing in the capital improvement schedule, things like that.
And I had the city manager and Helena got me the numbers. This is just for the general public. Of that $72 million budget, and what was it, around 45 million is ad valorem. Just for people alone, all the stuff that comes with people, $35 million of that budget is going strictly for people, salaries, and benefits. So almost half of our total budget is going strictly for people. I just want the general public to know that. And
that's out of the general fund, though, sir. That's not total. Total city, we're looking like 12, 14% of our workforce is budget.
Yeah, so when you think about it, it's $45 million on ad valorem from the taxpayer. 35 million of that is going strictly for people.
Right, and in the same conversation, if we're talking about prioritizing public safety, right, of that 30 million is going directly to public safety. So if those are our priorities, 2/3 of the budget goes to that almost, or 2/3 of our ad valorem. So when we talk about this, there's, to the point, it's people and it's our priorities in terms of public safety that the majority of this goes to. I know there is a dashboard on the website that I believe is the finance portion that talks about, put in your address, here's the pie chart, and it tells you, you paid $4,800 in taxes, and $3,100 went to fire and police, and X XYZ. So it breaks down kind of like what your tax bill goes to, that really visualizes it so you can see where that's all going. Even when we're having this conversation about, and not to make anything light, just like the vice mayor said about, whether it's a $40 per person increase, saving 200 grand here or there, equates to pennies in terms of the tax bill. There's a lot that goes into it. So in order to get down to a meaningful cut in taxes, it's a lot of money out of the budget, right? And so I think that shows the challenge that's going forward, especially if you factor in, hey, a 3% CPI or a 4% CPI, that not only does that savings not really save much to terms to the individual, but then on top of that, it gives us less buying power just to stay at that level the next year. So it means we can buy less things and pay for less things in terms of Parks and Rec and public works and our sheriff and fire department. So it all has an impact. And overall, I know I've done this analysis before, and that's not to signal anything, because I certainly, I think heading towards a rollback rate is the right direction. Overall, our millage is low in comparison to cities like us all over the state. I've checked it multiple times, and I keep checking it because the state puts out the books of what everybody's doing, once per year. And anytime any of that changes, I go back and look again. The last time I looked, there was 13 cities between 100 and 150,000 population, and we were the lowest millage rate of all of those cities. And you look at some of our contemporaries in the area, Ormond and things like that, and we have a lower millage rate than all of those. I don't know if Bunnell is over 7, I believe. The county is around 8. I think the only one that has us beat is Beverly Beach, and I think they have kind of a distinct different level of service that they provide over there than what we do. So, they like to tout their 1 mill rate. So I just wanted to bring that up as well. But in terms of in comparison to other cities, we're not at some crazy high rate. We're actually much lower than most other cities that are like us throughout the state and cities in our area.
Well, there's other factors too, like down in South Florida, there's communities down there that not only do they have their millage rate, but they also have those additional service fees.
Oh yeah,
that
and
we
they're
don't
getting
have.
way more revenues off of some of these other things. When we talk about, even cities around us, some of the cities around us have all these franchise fees and things like that, different fees that they've added on. So, we don't have all these random fees tacked on, as well as we have a low millage rate in general. And again, that's not to say, I want to raise the millage by any means. That's just to say, hey, in comparison, we're doing a pretty good job. And I think that's why when, the CFO came to the county, he had nothing to say about Palm Coast in terms of where we were at. I think if we were massively overspending, we would have been mentioned. I think that opportunity would have been taken. And then we had that meeting with him in Tallahassee, and he did back of the napkin because he didn't have our numbers in front of him, but he said, I think you guys are in a pretty good spot. So, obviously this is tough, and we're trying to figure out what's best for the city going forward, and that's going to be balancing, do we want to provide certain things and spend that money, but that comes with, maybe not reducing as much, or does it mean, hey, we need to get down to a true tax decrease, and that means we're cutting a lot, and so that's the conversation I think going forward. I don't know what consensus we've given.
Yeah, that's what I was going to chime in and say. The only thing that I've seen so far, I've heard that I got some consensus with a 10% reduction across the board.
I don't agree with that, okay? I mean, just since nobody will let me speak, let me say this. Part of the problem is the tax bill that every one of us get is not 4.1 or 4.2 mils. It's 18 to 20 mils, depending on where you live. That adjustment by us is not going to change the public perception that we're overtaxed here or undertaxed here in Palm Coast. So, like it or not, that's not the tax bill that we get as citizens. We get a tax bill at least four times larger than the amount of millage that the city is charging. And I think Ty has made a lot of good points about what the controller for the state had to say. There was not a lot to say about Palm Coast. And we're doing what they asked us to do. We're building our utility system based on money that we're generating one way or another here, things like that. So I just want to make that point that this idea that the people are going to get in a big uproar, there might be a few, but the bottom line is 4.1, 4.2 isn't going to have very much of an impact on all the citizens here in Palm Coast.
So that being said, staff does need direction from council, what you would like them to bring back to you or to work on
Do we
or
have
to do anything.
Do we have consensus looking at 10% across the board?
I would like to see the exercise of looking at, yes, what we can cut across the board without affecting levels of service, and then whatever millage rate that is, I guess. But I also would like to see what we're looking at to get down to a rollback without, you could say gutting code enforcement, that's not what we were doing, but without affecting code enforcement just itself. What you all come up with, I don't really care at this point. My point is that we haven't done necessary exercises before we start talking about cutting employees.
So that's 1, 2, you on board?
I'm good with taking a look at it.
10%. 10% cut across the board.
I'm not good with
All
10%.
departments.
I'd be good with rollback plus cost of living increase.
Plus CPI. I would like to see that analysis as well
6%?
That equates
as an
like
option.
6% across the board?
You're right, Marcus?
No, I was taking notes.
Okay.
You guys talk very fast. It's hard for me to keep up. So repeat that one more time. Rollback,
Plus CPI.
CPI. You want to see both that and the 10% reduction?
I think I'd be good with that, yeah.
Is that,
I mean, to me, that rollback plus CPI is where we've been directed by the state to go. And so I'd like to see that. I know they would like to see the 10%, so I don't want to deny them the opportunity to see that. I know that's going to incur more time and effort, but I think that's a good thing in terms of staff going through that.
so you want us to look at 10% and current mill plus CPI? You got
I'm good with that.
Elena?
A rollback.
It's the rollback?
Plus.
Okay, so just so I understand the assignment correctly, you want us to present 10% cut across the board from your proposed 27, from your 26 budget,
Yes.
from the 26 budget?
So rollback being 4.1387.
Yes. Yeah, it's CPI to that.
So
two-
fiscal
I
year,
said about 3 million.
So that'd be two scenarios. The rollback with the CPI adjustment and then a 10%. So it's two scenarios.
fiscal year 2026, 10% cut across the board, right? For all divisions?
What we're looking at?
That's your call.
Is that what we're looking at?
This was the request by you guys, so I'm whatever you guys are looking
I'm
for.
only good to the CPI.
Okay.
Rollback plus CPI.
Those two scenarios.
I don't think she got her clarification.
Say again?
I requested across all divisions.
Yes, yes. Across
From
all
the
the-
2026 across all divisions?
All general fund, right?
Yes.
All general fund?
Yeah. Because that's really what we're dealing, is the Avalon, that's it. That's what we're dealing with.
Does
That is
include
correct,
the
but some of
contract-
these-
Does that include the
Yes.
contract for the sheriff? So we're going to reduce the sheriff's current contract by 10%.
That's my question. Is
That's what
it
she's asking.
across the board for all divisions? Is that what you're asking us? I just
would-
need to understand.
I wouldn't advocate to affect public safety in any way. So no.
Excluding those two operational areas, fire, rescue, and the sheriff's.
My frustration with this, and I know we're trying to get there, but it comes into play, I don't want us to limit it. So in other words, let's say that within, and I'm just using it as an example, let's say that within Public Works, there can be a 13% decrease in cost without affecting level of service, or affecting level of service nominally. Then we shouldn't preclude that. I think if we're trying to get to a flat 10% decrease within all of the departments, that maybe allows for a little bit more wiggle room. I mean, at the end of the day, how our city manager gets there is up to him and the directors. I don't want to specifically say that, yes, it has to be 10% from each department. Just a 10% overall, yeah.
You got it, Helena?
10% reduction from the 2026 budget overall. So you want us to prepare, so if we were looking at your fiscal year 2026 approved budget is 67 million, you're looking for a budget of 61 million?
That's 10%.
I'm just trying to understand the mechanics, because there's a lot of numbers that we're gonna have to calculate here with a lot of Excel spreadsheets. And then you're affecting the allocations from the other departments, right? So we not only have to look at all the general fund divisions, but I'm gonna have to go to IT and say, you cut 10%, fleet, you cut 10%, facilities, you cut 10%, and bring that in to roll.
So
That's why I'm asking for specifics.
My
I'm not
question,
trying
though,
to
in regard, sorry to cut
be
you off.
difficult. I just-
When we're talking about general fund, that is including other revenues that we are not making decisions on. There's sales tax share and things like that, that this ad valorem. So if we're saying we're cutting 6.5 million because it was 67 million, we can only cut that from ad valorem, right? So I think what we're doing is we're cutting 14% of the sale of the property tax revenue to cover the entire general fund's reduction, even though that sales tax portion is not going to be reduced, or whatever other revenues we get from the general fund.
We're still waiting for the state on those revenues. So far, the only inclination I got was on the revenue sharing, and we had built a conservative estimate increase, I think of $70,000. And what I saw on their preliminary report, it's actually going to be a decrease, where they were sending us like $187 a month. The preliminary report that I saw said that they're gonna send us $185,000 a month instead. So I'd be very careful with the state revenues. They've updated their website, and now it just doesn't even say July anymore, it just says August. But if this, with the municipal revenue, is any indication of what they're looking to do with those revenues, I wouldn't even count on our conservative increase.
Did we, I know
that
I
helps.
asked for this clarification, and I can't recall what the answer was, but in terms of their sharing, there's not a strict formula that's used for
No.
that sharing.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, just wild that, we have record sales tax expenditures every single year for the past 5 years, and the numbers are going down that's being shared for us. So we're putting more into the state coffers, and it's not coming back, essentially, is what's going on. While also be giving unfunded mandates and, being told that we have to develop and we have no say in that and every other thing, and then we're going to take no impact fees, and then we're going to take property tax revenue away. So I don't know what the state's plan is, but it looks like total destruction of cities right now.
Well, especially ones that are 90/10.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Mr. Mayor, that, Tampa and Orlando are going to be fine because, 2/3 of the general fund revenue is not ad valorem or even higher percentages, whereas ours is the opposite way. So the biggest egregious abusers of this, though, are the ones that will be hurt the least by this. Yeah, exactly. Is kind of the point.
Are you good, Helena? I really don't. I kind of don't like looking at it like that. I like looking at this is the millage rate. Tell me how you're going to run your departments within that millage rate. Where are you going to allocate the funds for each department? I don't like cherry picking, kind of, saying just a 10% across the board. And I forgot about that because when my recommendations, I had a tier 1. You don't touch these. These are the only tier 2 are the only ones you would do any cuts in.
So is
I just think
savings.
the rollback plus COLA is the one that makes the most sense to me, because we're only going to get so many cuts.
Yeah.
No matter what, and we'll get just as many asking for that as we will for trying to do a.
So then is the direction to maybe present a budget with rollback and maybe present a budget with rollback plus COLA and let them figure it out?
There you go.
So that's the rollback and then rollback plus CPI. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, yes, CPI, not COLA. My apologies.
Same thing.
And the direction, to be clear, is not that it has to include the gutting, so to speak, of code enforcement, but that we want to see what these budgets look like.
Maybe there's multiple options for each of those two versions, right? Like, we can cut this or we can cut this, right?
Well, that
To
would go
achieve
back to
the
level
same,
of service.
right?
Yeah.
Yep, that'll be for the city manager and senior staff.
But that, I mean, that's what's been presented to us, and if we only have one option there, then it's being presented as an option to like defund the police versus raise taxes, right? And that's a terrible decision to be making, right? So,
I like those two recommendations. I mean, I think it's straightforward.
Are we straight? We good with that, Helena? We got it now?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, timeline, do we have time to
When's our next?
prep those?
So we're probably looking at the August 25th would be the earliest, just because we'd have to recalculate all of the allocations in the department's budgets to be able to,
So it's going to take you a little while.
exactly,
So our next workshop is strictly
capital.
capital improvements.
That is correct. So for the 25th is where we would bring you back the two options that you've requested. I do caution that our first public hearing is shortly after the 25th. So we will need really decisions made
Yeah.
that day in order to know what we're going to prepare for your first public hearing. Because then it's just the timeline is
So the
fairly quick.
25th should be our drop dead date of figuring out what we want to do.
That would
Right.
be very helpful.
Yes, ma'am. Everybody keep that in mind.
That would be very helpful.
Anything else from the council? You're good, Helena? Mr. Attorney Man, you're good? Okay. Any further discussion? This is tough. Everybody knows it's tough. That's why we get paid the big bucks, right? All right, we're going to move on to our last public comment. We're going to, oh, I'm sorry. We'll open public comment for this specific item on the agenda, the budget presentation. Appropriated funds.
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, and staff. My name is Jimmy Hengy. Palm Coast, I live in District 2. I was doing a cursory review of the financial slides, and I noticed on page 45 of the slides that the city pays 6 pay periods of severance pay. The city's on a bi-weekly pay program, so that 6 periods of severance pay adds up to like 3 months. Also, an employee can accumulate up to 320 hours of personal time off. My question is, if the city were to incur a 10% labor cut as a result of the Homestead Amendment passage, how much would the city have to pay out? It seems like this policy of a 6 pay period severance is too much. A national average for a commercial business is 1 to 2 weeks. Maybe the city should relook at this severance policy and make some adjustments. There could be some savings there, especially if there is going to be a potential layoff from the Homestead Amendment.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comment concerning the budget presentation? Proprietary funds. Seeing no one come forward, we'll bring it back to Dice. Any follow-ups? Who handles that policy? Where does that come from? Is that a human resources policy on the severance?
Yeah.
Okay, good afternoon or morning, whatever. Mayor and Council, Kyle Berryhill, interim deputy city manager. As City Council gave consensus for us to explore the option related to changing the model for code enforcement, as part of that option, there was a reduction in workforce. Our policy talks about how we would do the layoffs, but it doesn't talk about severance. In the past, when we have done those types of situations with severance and buyouts, those are something that's come before City Council, and so the slide that was being referred to is not a city policy, is something that was being proposed for City Council action, which we also highly recommend. we have successful employees doing their job well, and we're going to end their career, we should take care of them, because we're going to have to continue to hire good people in the community. It's part of our workforce. It's not like we're hanging out a shingle and having a big line here. So it's an important thing. And so, but it's definitely a policy that's at the discretion of City Council.
All right, thank you, sir. Yeah, that was just a suggestion. It's not written in stone. That's the severance policy for the city. Thank you so much. Anyone? That's right. Any follow-ups from the council? Okay, we're going to move on to our last public participation. Does anyone have any comments concerning items not on the agenda? Seeing no one come forward, we'll bring it back to the dais. Move on to city council matters not on the agenda. Anybody got any follow-ups? Anything they got? Yes, sir. I'll come back to you. Councilman Gambaro.
All right, so we're on comments not on the agenda? Correct. Okay.
The discussion, city council matters not on the agenda.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's important, for our residents, all of us here on this dais care about our community, and we're working hard to find the right way ahead. And it's tough work, and these workshops are important because this is the only time we can talk about it, and it's important to hear each other's perspectives, and we're all working hard to find the right answer. I wanted to just publicly thank Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins for coming to visit with us last week, and importantly, he visited Palm Coast Fire Station 25, showcased our baby box, which I think it's a critical asset for our community and as our firefighters. And we also visited the promenade, where I think he's going to work to bring some potential. He's got access to some of the CEOs of some really important chains, and hopefully we can get those folks to come in. But during his visit and over the last year, this council, we are focused on economic development. And again, some of the biggest challenges that we have are lands and buildings, right? We're very, very limited to that. We should feel very lucky that Mr. Bill Angrick invested over $80 million to build the promenade without even having one lease sign. It's taken a tremendous amount of risk. We're looking at areas, on the Bulow properties to see how we can move forward. But and Mr. John Zobler's done a great job in selling some of our existing property to bring in the facility that were approved last week, for over 100 jobs. And so, but next week we've got a pretty important discussion, right? We're going to be looking at the MPD for the westward expansion. We're going to be looking at the annexation of that area, and also the Flume Amendment and the map, which really it'll be the first read. And as I look at that project from an economic development perspective, we just got a new economic impact statement on the project. And what we're seeing now is, first and foremost, benefits to the city of Palm Coast. From an economic perspective, it looks like $1.4 billion and $1.9 billion to the county. But what really jumped out at me was just the amount of, not residential, and Mr. Mayor, you're right, I got it backwards last week. It's 25% non-residential, 75% residential. But in that non-residential and commercial footprint, there is planned for a potential of 8,214,000 square feet of land and potential buildings for us to build, to be able to attract businesses to come here and help put our residents to work, so that 55% of our population doesn't leave on a regular basis in order to work. We want our families to work and live here. It's critically important. And so I know there's concerns in other areas about the MPD. I mean, just construction jobs, 84,326, $5.9 billion in salaries, $17.8 billion in revenue sales for businesses related to construction. It's a big deal, but our tax base is still over 90% residential, and I'm looking at this project from a commercial perspective. We have all these concerns about Amendment 3. Well, if our tax base is more diversified, we wouldn't have this problem, right? And so here's an opportunity to add over 8 million square feet of commercial, non-residential, industrial space to our city so that we can protect ourselves from these preemptions and unfunded mandates from the state. I mean, today's discussion could be completely different if we had a more diversified tax base, and we're staring at an opportunity next week to where, for the future of our city, we can better protect ourselves because, you know, second homes are not counted in Amendment 3. Investment homes and commercial businesses, space, are not included in Amendment 3. And so what does that do? It gives us the ability to better fund our first responders. It gives us the ability to do a lot of different things. It gives us the ability to fund these priorities that are in our strategic action plans. So I think it's critically important. I think we need to address the concerns that are out there that some of us have shared here from the dais, because we always want to make sure that whatever we do is in the best benefit of our city and our residents. But 8 million square feet, right? We've heard it from day one. Buildings and lands, and we don't have it. Here's an opportunity for us to have it and completely protect ourselves from the state in the passage of Amendment 3. And so I look forward to the discussion next week. I'm sure it'll be spirited, and this is what needs to happen. I mean, this is what democracy looks like, and we have to hash it out. But from a strategic perspective, I think it's important that we also consider the incredible impact from a commercial perspective that this westward expansion could have on our community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Sullivan, you got anything?
Nothing further. I enjoyed the conversation today, and it is important that we get to a point where we can complete the budget, get it done. Remember my little warning there a couple of weeks ago when I talked about the fact if we push this too far back and then make a decision that affects what the staff has to do in the last 24 hours before the budget goes into effect. October 1st. It's not that far off.
It's going to come up quick. Councilman Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And so I just wanted to highlight a tremendous loss that our community had over the weekend. The co-owner and founder of East Coast Animal Clinic, Carly Tajmer, passed away. She lost her battle to cancer. She's come and spoke several times to us here as an advocate for animals in the community, as well as at the county commission meetings. And just wanted to mention that she leaves behind a husband and 2 kids, as well as, you know, immense amount of friends and family that are, you know, feeling the loss. So I just wanted to bring that up and let everybody know about the city's loss, as well as mention that the services will be Saturday, August 1st at 10 a.m. at Trinity Presbyterian Church on Florida Park Drive.
38 years old, right?
Yes, very young. And so just a tremendous loss, a huge advocate for animals in our community, that their clinic has stepped up, you know, big time in terms of helping our animal control, as well as some of the nonprofits in the area. And so everybody's feeling the loss, but I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware out there that a huge member of our community has unfortunately passed away.
All right, thank you, sir. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, thank you for that. One of the most selfless people that I've met in our community, so prayers and thoughts are with her family, especially her husband and her kids, so thank you for bringing that up.
That's it? All right, thank you. I have nothing. Mr. Attorney Man?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just 2 quick things. I'm going to request calling a shade meeting for our 2 cases that are pending right now, the HBA lawsuit and the Palm Coast Holding lawsuit. We'll be getting that scheduled at a later date, but at least wanted to put the notice out there. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. City Manager, any final words?
No, sir. Thank you.
Anything else from the council? Any alibis?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, guys.